Hello and welcome to Bounding Live. My name is John Trent. I'm the editor-in-chief at Bounding Into Comics, and I am joined by my co-hosts Spencer Bakuli and Drew Taylor, and special guest Brett R. Smith, the man behind Chuck Dixon's Blood, the graphic novel. We're glad to have him here. How are you guys all doing tonight?
Doing well.
Yeah. So we want to say hey to the chat. I see Mark Lasurth is already here in the chat. How's it going, Mark? Glad that you could join us. We're going to start off with what we typically do. We're going to go around the horn, letting folks know what we have been enjoying over this past week. Unfortunately, Don is not here to join us to give us his one-page update on Dune. That is unfortunate. We will miss that. But we'll start with you, Spencer. We'll start with you.
Yeah, so this week I have been playing a lot of One Piece Pirate Warriors 4, as I'm sure everybody's heard me go on about these last couple weeks. But aside from that, I've just been jamming on more Power Rangers, which is incredible. And I have been reading Demon Slayer. So just keeping it weeby, keeping it comic, keeping it good comics and hanging out.
All right. How about you, Drew?
Well, for me so far this week, I've just been kind of worried about wrapping up physical therapy. This is the final week I'm going to be doing physical therapy for my spine and whatnot. And, I've got my final appointment for that Friday. And in between, I wrote that piece on Doc. And then I'm going to have the Halo stuff all locked and loaded and ready to go for tomorrow, because I'm going to write a nice article about the cancellation and what I think some of the things that went into that are. And, the fact that I don't think it's all bad. I think that it's going to provide a good game in the long run. So I'll get that out. We'll have an article and video for that. And then aside from that, just been
leveled up Mike Myers.
Yeah, I played a little bit. I haven't gotten to play too much this week. I will be playing Sunday on our Bounding Twitch channel. So if anybody wants to catch that, most definitely we'll do some chilling and killing with Michael Myers. And then also tomorrow, the Pegasus Actual Podcast. I got to remember to watch the episode for that tonight, as we're doing season 2, episode 16 of Battlestar Galactica, and that episode is Sacrifice. So, make sure y'all catch that. But yeah, I've just been doing kind of normal stuff this week. I haven't got a chance to really kick back and get into anything new. I have watched. I did see some of Doc's stream earlier today, and he was playing more of that Rogue Company. So that game kind of intrigues me. I may look into getting into playing that beta, just to get into playing something fresh. So we'll see what's going on with that game. But that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, we'll have to get. That sounds like you got a lot going on. There's a lot there. Definitely some. I'm really looking forward to the Twitch stream. I really enjoyed the last one where you were just like owning people with Mike Myers.
Yeah.
Seeing you and Spencer trying to survive from that other. It was really interesting watching you guys evade the other Mike Myers, who's really bad. And how good you are.
Yeah, I know. It's like the contrast there. I know how to actually get the people, and that guy is nuts. That guy absolutely did not.
That guy was really bad.
We'll have to get Spencer hooked up on the Twitch stream too, so maybe he can do some One Piece, so we can see.
Yeah, definitely. I've been looking to set that up, so hopefully.
Spencer, Sunday night, you and I.
Yeah, I'm in for more DVD.
All right.
Yeah, I'm looking. I'll definitely tune into that because I had fun. I might join in the chat there too because I had some fun.
You're always invited.
It was fun.
Yep.
I do see we have some folks in the chat letting us know they are watching as well. Lopter, Demon King of Infernos, is still playing Monster Legends, Payday, Fable, and Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts. That's up right up your alley, right?
Oh yeah, that's one of the series I love to death, even though it's a bit ridiculous.
Oh, Deviant Pork is asking if I broke my mic. No, I just didn't bring it down, so it was like really far away from my face. There, is that better?
Yes.
Deviant Pork. Okay. But yeah, so sorry about that. That was just me brushing to start. Mark Lasserth says, I saw a show from HBO Asia called The Head, which was a murder mystery in the Antarctic, kind of like And Then There Were None. Is it called The Head, Mark? What's HBO Asia?
I didn't know they had different HBOs.
Yeah, you'll have to find that out. I'm not going to say this guy's name because we will definitely get demonetized immediately. But Mr. C,
I blame Toxic. It's probably Toxic
No, Mr. C is watching us on Twitter, and he says, "I didn't know there was a Bounding Twitch channel." Yeah, we just kind of created it. What, 2 weeks ago? I guess now.
Did our first run through, setup run through about a week ago, and Drew is leading the charge on that. But I'm also trying to do what I can. So yeah, it's brand new.
Yeah, and we actually stream all of our streams there. We're streaming to Twitch right now. So if you want to search Bounding into Comics on Twitch and watch us on Twitch, we are on Twitch as well right now, streaming there. So you can find us there. Mr. C. Deviant Pork says, I've read the latest Justice League. I recognize the thumbnail. Oh yeah, you like the thumbnail. Yeah, use that. We'll be talking about that a little bit later, but I used the thumbnail for the DC Comics Layoffs story too. Spencer said he had just noticed it right before we went live, and I was just like, dude, it was like an epic thumbnail. How did you not realize that? Just using their like own recent cover.
It was perfect.
For that story. But Deviant Pork also says he's been reading Flash, Batman, Detective Comics, and the Rocket Raccoon miniseries, and The Last Deceased Dead Planet. You have to let me know if those are any good. I've kind of just tuned out of DC Comics. I was buying a ton of DC Comics when they were doing the Rebirth stuff, but then once Rebirth went away, I was just like, this isn't. Well, there wasn't anything to really.
I think I hung around for Rebirth a little bit, and then I kind of just was waiting for Doomsday Clock to end, and since Doomsday Clock, I've kind of just given up.
It just kept getting delayed. I don't think I ever finished it. So.
I know. I had to wait for all 12 issues. I think I was reading them month by month up until like 4, and then it was delayed for 6 months, and so I said, I'm just going to wait. So before it got it all, and I don't think I've touched DC since.
Yeah, I've also changed my comic reading habits. I don't really buy single issues anymore. I just get collected stuff now.
That's probably smarter.
All right.
You don't have to take the risk.
All right.
I want to answer Nova Zero's question real quick. He said, does Twitch permit dual streaming? And Nova Zero, all I can say is we haven't even reached affiliate yet, so it doesn't really matter. They can't really say much of anything to us. I mean, if they do, it would be like a slap on the wrist. It'd be like, don't do it again. That's about it. I
didn't read their rules. I maybe should have done that. Yeah, we'll figure that out I'll have to look at that maybe tomorrow about that. I know when we're doing the game streams though, we're not. We're just streaming to Twitch. We don't stream to YouTube or anything else. All right, Brett. I know you want to plug Blood.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
This started back.
While since I think we did an interview with you guys.
Yeah, a while ago. Yeah, because it was supposed to come out last summer, and then we had kind of a little bidding war with a couple of publishers, which just basically it was, and publishers love October. They had kind of have these windows where they like to release books, so we just decided to go for the fall, but. It was a couple of Hollywood screenwriters reached out to me through a mutual friend back in late 2017, and they just had a treatment. They had a 12-page treatment of basically a werewolf story set in the early 1900s in a small village, and it revolves around a female protagonist and a couple other characters, and it was kind of this simple little story. And almost kind of like a play, and they just had sort of like the just sort of the broad strokes, basically. And like I said, it's just 12-page treatment. There wasn't a whole lot there. There's no dialogue. There's no foreshadowing. There's really,
That's kind of cool.
It was, because in that sense, we could kind of make it what we wanted, out of it. I could really we could kind of embellish. So I sent it to Chuck, and I said, I think this would make a good graphic novel. What do you think? And would you be interested in working on it? Chuck Dixon. And he emailed me back and said, yeah, that's some good guts. It's kind of a good skeleton. We can build out from there. He said, it needs a lot, but we can make this work and really turn it into something special. So it was privately financed. The book was, it wasn't a crowdfund or anything, which was also really nice. I had a nice budget on it. I was able to go and hire Derlis Santa Cruz, who's an artist down in Brazil, who I've worked with many times at DC Comics on a number of Batman titles. Derlis and I did, we did a bunch of stuff during the Villains Month, way back. I guess that was, what was that, like 2014, I think?
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
Well, and they had all those cool covers, and it was that was fun. I thought that was a lot of fun. We did Ventriloquist, and
that's when they canceled the Batgirl cover, right?
Right,
yep,
right.
The Joker one.
Well, what's funny is we did Derlis and I did Ventriloquist with Gail Simone. So.
Oh wow.
yeah. And she told me she was really, really impressed with the art. She loved the art. She loved the coloring. She thought it was gorgeous before she blocked me on Twitter. So there you go.
That's how it goes.
But Derlis is a great guy, and I was happy to to bring him in. We also did Killer Ice. Isn't that the character? Is it Killer Ice? What's
Killer
the
Frost?
Killer Frost. Thank you.
Yeah. The girl?
Yes, we did. We did that for Villains Month.
It's not Icicle. Icicle's the guy.
No, she's got the icicle head, the hair that sticks out. That's
Killer Frost.
Killer Frost.
Yeah, that's the old Killer Frost. I think
But
she's got a new design now.
well, I remember because we had a big double-page spread in that book where we had Killer Frost fighting Firestar around around like New York, and it was the first time I had ever colored Firestar, that goes back to Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Something I used to watch like every day in the 80s. So that was kind of a trip, but it was fun to bring Derlis in because I knew he would do a really great job. And Chuck cranked out a great script. There was very little changes, and we just went to work on it. We were doing probably anywhere from 10 to 15 pages a month, and took us about 7 or 8 months to crank it out. And once that was done, we were, we originally, like I said, hoping to have it out sooner, and then we just got a bunch of interest between the publisher we went with and another publisher down in Australia, and just worked out perfect. So we got a great deal, and it's going to be printing with API Productions, who also prints all of Tim Lim's books and Doug TenNaples' books. I think they also print all of Mike Miller's books. Great printer out and in America. That's the other kind of cool thing about this. We're going to be printing in America and not in China.
That's incredible.
China, as Trump likes to say it. Yeah. So
China.
Yeah. China.
So you mentioned that this was a treatment from a bunch of screenwriters in Hollywood. I remember talking to you guys last time about this, that it would be adapted into a film. Is that still happening?
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, absolutely. So I think I think they're trying to figure out how they can do that now, with COVID. I mean, all of Hollywood is sort of rocked by COVID, and they're trying to figure out, how do we move forward with production and all this stuff. And
animation.
It's right. I mean, everybody's going to be basically like filmed in isolation, and they'll just basically drop everybody in post-production or something. It's
the Mandalorian tech too might help them, because I think it's all done in studio, green screens and stuff.
I don't know if you guys watched that doc on the special effects for the Mandalorian.
I haven't watched it, but I've heard of it. I do need to watch that.
It's like 8 episodes. It's kind of like a documentary. They start from the beginning and it goes from kind of writing to pre-production into post. But they did one episode on the studio in which they film over 50% of that show, and it's called The Volume, and it's just like a giant soundstage with all these LED lights. It's
huge.
It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
It's the tech that Lucas was trying to develop for that Star Wars underground show that never got off the ground, I think around 2010.
Well, they just didn't have the tech back then.
Yeah.
technology hadn't quite caught up. It's just incredible. I mean, between that guy and like Jim Cameron, I mean, it's
I saw some of the freaking Avatar underwater stuff that they're doing. Holy crap!
It's amazing.
Looks insane.
Yeah, I love Delita too.
Oh, I love Delita. Great film. Yeah. I bought the Blu-ray for that. I love that movie.
Yeah, same here.
So what exactly is Blood about? You mentioned it's a werewolf. It's about a werewolf, but can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, it's about the main character is Abigail Thorne, and she's probably in her late teens, early 20s, and basically she lives in this isolated cabin outside of town. And that was kind of part of the story that they wanted to tell, was because it's got a horror and a suspense element. I would say if it had to fall into a genre, it would be horror and suspense. And that was also the kind of the fun thing about this was I had never really done anything like that probably since my days in Chaos, back in the 90s. Working on because it was always just sort of tights and flights for me, as far as working for Marvel and DC. When we did that ventriloquist thing we did with Gale, that was definitely dark and kind of horror based for Villains Month. In fact, when I was working on that, I felt kind of like I was working on Chaos books back in the day, sort of using sort of those same palettes.
Yeah, I used to love reading Lady Death and Evil Ernie and stuff like that.
Yeah, those were fun, definitely fun times. That whole bad girl craze in the early to mid, or actually probably mid to late 90s. That was insane, dude.
That was fun, yeah.
Absolutely insane. So she's this character. One of the things we wanted to do with the story was kind of highlight the isolation and being out on her own and having to fend for herself against this werewolf. And there's quite a big plot twist in this book. It's got a real twist at the end, which has been, I would kind of liken to M. Night Shyamalan in his glory days. It's got one of those things that kind of really comes out of nowhere. So it's
that's a little different from Chuck.
well, that portion of it was in the treatment.
Okay.
So that was sort of the interesting part. We had to sort of work within this box to a degree. Right, because they had the beats, they had the story beats down, the Hollywood guys, and we just kind of had to flesh it all out and sort of build this world visually as well as give it backstory and make these characters work. But it's got a love affair, forbidden love affair between Abigail and another guy named Samuel, who is the son of the sheriff who lives in the village, and they're kind of forbidden to see each other. That's part of where the twist comes in, and then you've got the werewolf sort of stalking her because she lives in this isolated cabin sort of outside of probably 8 to 10 miles out of town, a good half a day's walk or maybe a 20-minute carriage ride. So we wanted to heighten that isolation and build that into use the forest as kind of like this character and the isolation as sort of a character to really heighten it, and just kind of stack all of the odds in the werewolf's favor. So, and then that's
right.
That's how you get a good protagonist, is when the character is in real jeopardy, and you don't really see a way out necessarily. That's kind of the fun part.
Yeah, I don't know who said this, but like you put your character in almost like unwinnable. I think it was Larry Hama actually at a Virginia Beat it was at a Richmond Comic-Con. He was talking G.I. Joe, and he was just like, you put your characters in almost these like unwinnable situations, and the real fun is like figuring out how they're going to get out of it in these unwinnable situations. That's
the payoff, especially for the reader. Not only is the storyteller, it's fun to give yourself that payoff, because that's sort of that gives you the juice, to do this stuff. But for the reader, it's huge. We've all read those payoffs.
Oh yeah,
and we want to.
And we've all read failed ones too.
Chuck talks about it with Green Arrow. I think there's the Superman story where he's like the villain like locks him in the airplane or whatever, and he has to like figure out how to get out of the airplane. So
right.
Yeah, I remember him talking about that last time.
Yeah. No, that's a good story. That's the only good story from Chuck, but that's also a good story from DC Comics back in the days of yore.
I think they're collecting that. I think that I think they're gonna collect his Green Arrow run, so that hopefully that story will be in there.
Yeah, they've been doing.
If it gets published,
they've been doing more of his stuff, publishing more of his back issues. Because they sell.
AT&T took over.
Yeah. Well, they're looking at what sells.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, not at all. It's a business, as we have seen this week.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Brett.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things is, you gotta make those sales, with those big flagship books and those big flagship characters in order to do riskier other stuff. You got to have that revenue stream to go out and give, other creators, kind of the bandwidth and the leadway to take risks and do interesting things. Otherwise, you just end up with this. It's just stagnant and kind of boring and uninteresting, and it never expands.
Yeah, for sports fans, I think Barstool, I think, is a good example.
Yeah,
focused on like their core stuff, and now they're like able to almost do every kind of sport now. And I think they even like sponsored they sponsored a NASCAR car at one point.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I think I think that's like just from a business standpoint, they're like a really good example of that. All right. I know we talked earlier. You might have some images you wanted to share.
Yeah, sure. I've got a PDF. How would I do this?
You just on the bottom, Brett, where it says in the StreamYard tab where it says share screen, just click on that.
Okay.
And then
drop down should show up, and you pick the window tab or whatever that you want to share.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
While you're doing that, I can go in and talk about what I was enjoying this week. Yeah. So I read the first volume of Goblin Slayer. Absolutely fantastic. It's almost beat by beat from the anime. Absolutely loved it. I actually drew a lot of inspiration. I've actually been writing a little bit of a short story, as Spencer knows.
Yeah.
And I think I'm about 2,700 words in. I've just done two. I've just spent a little, at the end of the night, I usually just write some. I probably won't do any tonight, given that we'll be ending late here. But I've been doing that. That's been a lot of fun. And then I was also watching some Akame ga Kill on Netflix. I think I'm 8 episodes in. I've been watching that with the English subtitles, so I kind of I'm watching it and then being able to do some other things as well. And then I did watch the next episode of Megalobox as well, where he basically drove up to the Megalonia Stadium and was like, "Let me fight.
Let me in." Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, that was really fun too. So those were a lot of fun, a lot of Japanese stuff that I'm doing. So just like you, Spencer.
Yep.
I'm trying to think what else I might have watched. I think that's pretty much it that I've been focusing on. I know we were talking before the show. We were talking just how good the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance is. And I think I was actually rewatching a little bit of that with my wife. She had missed a couple episodes that I watched without her. So I went back and watched those episodes. I mean, it was still just as entertaining as it was the first time around.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I want to watch it again. I just and the crazy thing was I'm a part of that. I was at the finals in '93.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah, I went to all those games, and I was at Game 6 when we lost in Phoenix at America West Arena, and it was awful. I mean, it was.
I bet.
I mean, you got 20,000 people or however many people are in that arena. All boils down to basically it was 2.3 seconds. Which is and that's the one where inbound to Jordan, Marley leaves Paxson to double down with KJ on Jordan. Jordan pitches to Caxton in the corner, 3-pointer. They're up 1 or 2, and we've got 1.3 seconds to make a basket. It was awful, but frankly, it was an honor and a privilege to watch that guy play.
Oh, okay. You're talking from a Suns perspective then.
Yeah, he's talking from a Suns perspective.
Yeah, I'm not a Bulls fan.
Okay,
dude.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. I was like trying to figure it out.
It was awful. I mean, it was like, because Westfall took a timeout, with 1.3 on the clock to go to draw up a play, and he drew up this play to inbound to Oliver Miller. It was like Barkley to KJ to Miller under the hoop, which is something we had been doing all year. And the Suns had, I think, the best record in the NBA that year.
They did. Barkley was the MVP.
Dude, they were killers that year. I went to a lot of games because my uncle had club seats and would give them to insurance adjusters to get work. And when they didn't want them, he'd be like, "Hey, you want to go to a Suns game?" I'm like, "Yeah," because that was the year to go. But so in that timeout, the Phoenix Suns gorilla came out and got everybody cranked up and like screaming and yelling and like just going absolutely apeshit. And the play went, basically they inbounded the ball and the Suns couldn't get the basket off and the time ran out on the clock. And it was like this, it's like everybody sucked all the air out of the room. You went from this crazed
I know the feeling very well.
It was
feeling very
as
well.
do I.
I've never experienced anything like it. And it's one thing to watch it on TV. It's another thing to be there with everybody and participating in all that energy and all that enthusiasm and craziness. Because we were all just screaming our heads off, and then all of a sudden we're like, it was awful. It ruined my summer. It was awful. And I was just like counting down the days to October, and then the Suns came back the next year with like basically even a better team. They had Danny Manning and Wayman Tisdale, and it was a killer team. But they had the X factor. You just can't beat that guy.
Yeah,
you can't beat him.
Until he moved to the Wizards and he didn't have Pippen or like a Rodman.
Well, I was at the.
He was still doing like 23 points a game, though. I think.
I know.
Wizards.
I was at the shot game, well, because I live in Cleveland, and back at the old arena that the Cavs used to play in at the Richfield Coliseum. I was at that game, and man, I went home crying because like.
Dude, I hated that.
I hated that because the Cavs were winning. We were like on the verge, and then he just killed us with that shot.
He one of the things that Jordan does, one of his philosophies was, if you're going into the fourth quarter and you're up 20, the conventional wisdom for a coach or a team is to come out with, you rest your starters, right? Give them a blow, let them sit it out, and just ride it out, right? Because you've got another game. Jordan was like, no, we're going into the fourth, and we're going to go up another 20. His whole thing was he just didn't want to win the game. He wanted to crush the other guy's soul, because the next time you walk into a game with the Bulls, you're going to go right back to that game where they were up 20 and then they went up like another 10 and just beat him to death.
He talks about that. He says that in the documentary. He says it. He doesn't mention this specifically, but he was playing a mental game as well as the physical game. He wanted to make you think that like you couldn't beat him. He wanted to make sure that like you can't beat me. I'm the best. And like you can't beat me. And like he even talks about how he personally like changed the mentality of the Bulls. In that one game where he's the rookie or whatever, and they were down by 20 and like going into the fourth, and he says that everyone else was like, "Oh, it's over. I'm ready to go to the locker room and do whatever it does," and then he's just like, "This is crazy. I'm not going to lose this game." And he went and won, and then he said that changed their entire team dynamic.
Well, there's the game of basketball, and then there's the mental game. There's the inside game, and that guy was a master of manifesting. He would play the game in his head before each game. Just like he would sit there and think of hitting every free throw, just seeing it over and over again. So it's like so much of that guy's success is similar to other people who are like highly successful, high functioning people. They see it. And they don't allow negative crap to ever enter their mind. They always focus on what they want. But so much of Jordan was like psyops. It was completely psychological warfare.
I think Mark Spitz talks about that too when he won all his gold medals during the Olympics. He's like, none of these guys they're just as physically fit as I am. I'm just like mentally. He was just like, I'm mentally. It's just the mental game that I was better at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even Jordan always had like he was very superstitious as well. He had like his thing that he would do. One of the things was Egg McMuffin before practice every day. Egg McMuffin. I mean, it's like even you watch movies like Bull Durham, which is like probably one of the greatest baseball movies. That kind of gets into the head game. It can be basketball, baseball, whatever. There's a head game that you got to get into, and I always pay attention to that, and I try and apply that to commercial art and to making comics and to putting together a team. Right. I want killers, right? Like I don't want any weak links. Because that's how you end up with filler in a book, and you want all killer and no filler, and it's similar to like a band, like a rock and roll band or something.
Oh, that's like something that Kobe had too.
Yeah.
And see, like it's funny because and I've caught flack for this from people around here because obviously we won the title in 2016 with LeBron and stuff, but I never saw that in LeBron, and he like around here. I mean, he could do no wrong. Everybody like loved LeBron, but he just never had that instinct. He wasn't anywhere close to what Kobe had.
Well, I mean, I would argue. Hold on, I'm just checking something. I'm curious about something.
All right, well, you're doing that. Deviant Porg says in the chat.
He's a Gen Xer.
Yeah.
LeBron's a millennium. LeBron's a whiny millennial. I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
I take offense at that. Deviant Porg also has a recommendation. He says in manga, there's a new series, Kaiju number 8. Quite fun. It has the potential to become big. Only 6 chapters, I think, for now. Deviant Porg, let us know where you're reading that. Is that through Viz? Is that Shonen, Weekly Shonen Jump? Where can we find that at? All right. Let's jump into some of these images here.
Yeah, I can maximize this.
There you go.
So this was our cover. We had Dave Dorman do.
Fantastic cover artist. I got his Soul Finder.
Oh, that's a great cover.
Yeah, Dave's one of those guys that I grew up, looking at his covers and just being sort of mesmerized by, and a lot of the times, I would often buy just because it was a Dave Dorman cover, especially Star Wars stuff. God, it's just killer stuff. So it was.
Have you seen the Frazetta stuff he's been doing?
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I love watching him recreate that stuff. Sergio Cariello, who's my inker and one of the artists that I utilize a lot, inker on Agent Poso. He's been doing the same thing with John Buscema pages. He's been inking them and posting little videos of him doing it. It's fun to watch those guys go and work over the old masters. And that's something that I used to do as well as a colorist. I would try and recreate stuff that I liked or use a palette of this colorist or of this scene that I really dug. You try and recreate it, not only just to kind of keep things fresh and mix it up, but also learn something, in the process. So, but Dave and I came up with this concept, and then my letterer, April Brown, who's very talented, she did the logo. And then I just kept looking at it. I was like, I love this thing, and I don't know why. And then I realized it looks something like an 80s movie poster.
I was going to say that. It absolutely does.
Yep.
And then once I realized that, I was so delighted because I think that look and that style and the fact that Dave uses traditional mediums, he uses he paints all this stuff in real life. I think he uses gouache. In fact, he's been doing a lot of live streams on Facebook, Dave Dorman, of him painting. In fact, he was painting another book that I'm working on called Black Tide Rising. And it's so much fun to watch him work, man. He just sets up the camera and streams, and you just sit there and watch this, just this master at work, this guy who has honed his craft, to the point where he can pretty much do anything. And I just love this, and and this, it just kind of had sort of a Stranger Things sort of 80s, kind of look to it, and I just thought that's a really cool, kind of aesthetic to it, an element. It's a little bit of a throwback. And then on top of that, again, you've got traditional mediums, which have sort of a different texture and look and feel than what some of the digital stuff does.
Oh, definitely.
So, and when I started out at Chaos, we were all using traditional mediums. The digital age hadn't really hit yet. So it was, it's fun, but there's a lot of limitations to that stuff. But at the same time, there's just kind of a organic quality about it that I think still really sells. So. Mm-hmm. And it's great to see Dave getting work with Soulfinder. He's working with Tim. Tim uses him on nearly everything. Doug Ernst has him on the sequel to Soulfinder as well. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, I will move along here. So one of the things that I wanted to do with this book was to make it very cinematic. So, what I told Chuck writes basically kind of like cinema style. So that sort of worked out really nicely. And then I just told Derlis, I just said, do your thing. This isn't a superhero book, so you don't have to take that style. You can do something a little bit different. I want something that looks like film. So give me a lot of widescreen. And then we're also going to go with black gutters. That's something that I do on all my books. It just kind of gives it sort of that more of a cinematic quality of looking on the silver screen.
I love that moon, that second panel there with the deer like looking up, like noticing something, and then that moon that I mean, you see that all the time. I see that in real life all the time because we got deer here in the even in Alexandria. Still see the deer in the backyard. Like you just move and they're like they're up looking at and like staring at you. Yeah, like that.
Well, something else, that's it's a great point. Very few artists today can draw animals. And that was something when I first showed Chuck these inks before I ever colored them. I sent these over to him. I said, "Check this out, man." I said, "Derlis is starting off strong. This is really good stuff." And he emailed me back, and the first thing he said was, obviously in all caps, he just said, gorgeous. And then he said he draws animals really well. And then I emailed him back, and I said, "Yeah, he does." And I never thought about that, but not many artists do today have practice doing horses or deer or dogs or really anything. You never see that. So I thought that was kind of an interesting observation. And then I started to kind of think about it, and I was like, yeah, because nobody's classically trained anymore.
I mean,
I feel like the most you see from like horses and stuff are in big epic battles in like crossover event books where they put the top talent. You don't see it in the regular books where the rookies are getting started.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah.
People like Jerry Bingham who do like excellent Western paintings with tons of wildlife out there, no longer working comics because he's making more money selling those like gorgeous paintings.
Yeah, I tried to draft Jerry back into comics a couple times, and it's just not interested. It's not worth his time. Even though I've got first edition Son of the Demon sitting, near me here, which I bought at Mile High Comics back in the day, and it's got to be some of the strongest Batman artwork to this day.
I use his Batman artwork for like featured images on like Batman stories quite often.
Yeah, but I mean, he paints. I mean, he kind of took his whole, and he painted the cover for that as well, which is beautiful. I think oil painting. If you look at his Western images, you can understand why. I mean, he's really quite. He's almost too talented for comics in that sense. Julie Bell, she's another one who's just married to Boris.
Mm-hmm. I
mean, I'm friends with her on Facebook. She's always posting paintings that she's doing, which are basically all just commissions. 90% of, I'd say maybe 1% every once in a while is something superhero related, but it's all basically Westerns and kind of, landscapes and animals and such. So it's, it's interesting because comics have lost a lot of talent to fine art, like Jerry, and also advertising. And that's kind of how I ended up in advertising. Was somebody offered me a whole lot of money to color some storyboards one day, and I was kind of like, okay, this is fun.
Of course.
Which turned into 15 years doing storyboards in advertising and working with huge clients, and it's a blast. It's a lot of fun. I'd argue in some ways it's more fun than making comics because you work so fast.
Freedom too, huh?
Yeah, you really do. And the other thing is, those storyboards, or or even the animatics that we do, where we animate the storyboards, those things are usually, it's all perishable. It all just gets basically dumped after the presentation. Creative director walks in, use those as a visual aid. The client's either into it or they're not. And whether they're into it or not, your work basically just gets deleted. So there's not quite as much pressure. It's not like people are going to be poring over these images for like 80 years or something. Yeah. Anyway, I will move along. This is the other thing I wanted to do on this was, kind of turn the lettering into sort of a character. So we sort of tried to find some lettering and fonts that were kind of organic and not too superhero, not too, and April was so used to doing superhero books that when she originally turned them in, they had all these kind of conventional fonts that you see in a lot of books. And I was sort of like, nah, we gotta fix this. We gotta figure out sort of some more, different fonts that sort of look organic and have some texture and then use that. So it's like, for instance, the sound of the werewolf in those top two panels, I use that same one throughout the entire book. That's sort of the signature sound, and also I wanted it to be the signature look of the werewolf throughout it all. So and this scene shows the two of the main characters, Samuel, who's down there in the panel, second page, bottom panel, with the double barrel shotgun, and his dad, who's in the back. That's their sheriff and deputy, and they're chasing down this kitty raper outside of the village who escaped. So it's I love this panel down here with the dogs. Again, Durless. I mean, look at those dogs, dude.
Yeah, that's like something that you could see. It's like they've treed a squirrel.
Right.
In this case, it's just a human now, and he's been treed. And that's what hunting dogs are. That's what hunting dogs do.
Well, and he also went in there and threw bloodhounds in there, which I didn't. I don't think that was necessarily detailed in the script. This is where you end up with, you find artists who are able to put the pieces together, and then on top of that, they're also bringing something to the table, and those are the kind of people I like to work with, because he took that scene where, just said dogs, and he plussed it, as Walt Disney used to say, how do we plus it? How do we make it better? This is fantastic, but let's crank it up a notch. So how do we plus this? And he was able to do that. Oops, wait, headset fell out.
Yeah, this is awesome looking.
Yeah, this looks great.
So, and again, we got that the blood moon, which is the harvest moon, which was kind of the whole. I remember I colored that straight when I first turned these in. They're like, no, that's got to be warm. And then I was like, oh, cool, that's even better, because then it'll contrast and it'll really pop. So, and just kind of moving on here, we had these heavily wooded. The whole book is just heavily wooded, so I really worked with a lot of textures to kind of build that world and kind of give it sort of a insular sort of feeling. You're kind of trapped inside this big forest and all these trees are towering over, and it played into sort of the isolation and also just sort of the feeling of being trapped. So, and that's kind of the stuff that was in the treatment that we got from those guys, just as far as sort of psychological elements that they didn't really know how to build that in, so that's sort of where, you turn that over to, a bunch of crazy comic book guys to basically figure it out. So, and this is our village down the bottom. We've got obviously the graveyard outside, which sort of, harkens back to the wolf, which was in the prior scene.
It's kind of ominous too. It looks like there's been a lot of recent deaths.
Yeah, this village is cursed. I mean, amongst the locals, that's basically the attitude. And especially people who live out of town. Like Abigail does. They're especially at risk. So, and this thing comes around, once a year, and basically just kind of sets upon the town of Kessler and feeds basically. So, I love the interior. This whole thing kind of reminded me of. I remember the first time I saw it, I was thinking of Unforgiven for some reason. I don't know why. The Clint Eastwood Western from the I guess that's the mid 80s.
Is that like a general store? Looks like a general store.
Yeah, exactly.
Werewolf page. I just love the panel breakup.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Yeah,
that's that again. I wanted a lot of widescreen. I wanted it to have a cinematic quality and a cinematic feel. To a large degree, I like to kind of make it look sort of like high-end storyboards. So, and a lot of that comes from just my own taste. That's something that Mark Millar and Brian Hitch did on the Ultimates. They went with tons of widescreen panels. Millar basically wrote that whole series sort of like a TV show, the beats, the way that everything is sort of stacked and the way it's all organized from a standpoint of the story. And then with Brian going in there and doing all that widescreen stuff, and then they did Black Gutters, which is basically where I steal that from. That was one of the first times I'd ever seen that done. Usually Marvel and DC, they're, dude, you go Black Gutters with Marvel and DC, you're going to get shit from your editor. Trust me. That's verboten. So when those guys did it on Ultimates, I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I haven't seen it that much really since. Light Gutters is sort of your standard look for the big two, which I think is a shame because I think it's got a cool feel to it.
I definitely think it works for the more of the horror vibe too that you're going for.
Yeah,
as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I'm reading a horror book, I like this aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
I really love that werewolf with the moon right behind him and him howling like that. That's almost like something you want to hang up in your house.
Mm-hmm.
Just that panel.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous panel, and we tried to keep. Another thing that the guys wanted to do was keep the werewolf in the shadows. Really sort of play up the suspense. Similar to what Ridley Scott did in Alien, where the first Alien, where you didn't see it a whole lot, but when you did see it, there were big payoffs, and it was terrifying. And then that played into there's a real isolation to Alien that also we wanted to kind of bring here, which is you're trapped on that ship. Abigail is trapped in the woods, and because she's so isolated, so outside, far outside of town. So the mist is my favorite part of that. So, and that was some of the same smoke that I used on Jawbreakers. I threw in there, and it just gives it kind of that again, a lot of horror films, especially probably from the 80s. You get those nighttime scenes, and there's just smoke everywhere. But it looks like. Just sort of a mist on the ground.
It reminds me a little bit of Van Helsing when the brother was the werewolf and he fails at catching Van Helsing at the end, and then he howls. Into
the moon.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah, and this is something else from a style standpoint. I wanted to give these nighttime shots kind of this sort of a bluish treatment, similar to what Michael Mann does. He's kind of famous for using that cool blue for nighttime sequences, and I wanted this to have, again, a cinematic look and quality. And
that bottom panel on the left page, he's stalking like Mike Myers, like you do, Drew.
Yep, exactly.
I love that stalking page.
Getting his stalk on.
Yep.
There's a really good pacing to all the panels too. Like you don't get lost. You always have a sense of what's going on.
Yeah, this is outstanding.
Well, it's a 98-page book. So we had, because of the budget that we had, we could, we ended up with about 120 page. It was a 120-page script, and then we kind of whittled it down a little bit. We sort of worked it down, but we had a lot of bandwidth to tell a nice story here and really flesh out these characters, get to know them. Build all of the backstory and, bring it into the present here. So it's, when you've got 98 pages, man, you can have a lot of fun and you can do a lot, you're not constrained.
I definitely see the isolation you were talking about. Just this one little, like almost one room house there. There's nothing around it besides the woods.
Yeah.
And that one, like, especially with that one road that just leads to nowhere into the woods. It's just like oh, there's no help out there.
That was another element that I told Durlis. I said, keep your shots from showing really any sky. I mean, where we'll, keep the sky sparse, because I want that walled in forest. There's nowhere to go. You're stuck. And that was, just sort of from the standpoint of, just building that element and that feeling. That's what makes that work. And he just did a brilliant job. So, and again, I'm keeping that lettering, again, it's even with the little, the bottom panel, it's the character, that font travels with the werewolf throughout the book. And I, it's, I'm not a big fan of sound effects, to be honest with you, but Chuck wrote them in. So I just figured, we'll roll with them. But the sound effects in this book are pretty sparse. There's not a whole lot. So, and that was another element that I liked from Ultimates was, there's no sound effects in that book. You just kind of, you hear it in your head, which I think is, a little bit better. Sometimes sound effects get a little silly. So,
yeah, especially when they're trying to do something unique for like a gun going off or something like that. And it's just like, just use the normal gun sound. You don't need to.
Yeah, you remember Frank Miller in The Dark Knight? He did bracca 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 with that.
Yeah.
I had never seen that before, but I remember seeing that. When I bought that off the shelf, and I just remember being like, "That's cool." Like I thought that was kind of cool. And then on top of that, he drew all that out. So that's also sort of what made it sort of interesting.
I like the way you have them placed. The way it's placed, like the bottom panel there on the left page with the werewolf's mouth. You can hear him breathing. You can feel him breathing, like he's right next to you.
Well, and I wanted to kind of, the sound effects I tried to kind of push back. I tried to. That was also sort of an aesthetic choice. I didn't want him to be the focal point. I didn't want him to be the main thing people focus on. It's all kind of
his white teeth
part of the scene. But yeah, it's the spit and the teeth, and also the steam and the atmosphere that I've got going on in there. So I love the first page, second panel. That's again, where he's in the silhouette, glowing eye, and all that smoke. That turned out really nice.
In the sixth panel, I like how the spit almost like blends in with the sound effect, and I like how you have the sound effect with the different colors too.
Yeah, April did that all on her own, and again, that's one of those things where you hire good people, and they bring things to the table that you didn't necessarily think you had or you needed, and that's one of the things that's fun about comics is it's a collaborative effort. So it always turns out a little bit different than what you imagine.
Yeah, and it makes it clear that you have that like guttural dog sound where you get like the growling of a dog. If you ever heard a dog growl, you'll hear that like that hard part, and then it will soften a little bit, and then they'll go again hard again. Right. And you have that the way she colors it with the bright, and then it cools with the blue, and then gets bright again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that.
Well, and I like the pacing here. It's kind of a slow build. It's sort of a slow burn to her. Taking a shot with that Winchester 30-30. And again, I don't have a sound. I don't have any blam or bang in that scene, and I'm happy about that. I think it would take away from the kind of the immersion I think that you get in a good story where it sort of fully immerses you, and you're kind of in that world, whether it's a film or a comic. Sometimes those sound effects sort of take me out of it, and
Yeah, I don't think you need it in that top panel. The visual does it for you. You already hear the rifle going off.
Yeah, and there's other scenes where guns go off. I mean, there's definitely guns and firearms definitely in this book, and that that was the other thing that I liked about it from the standpoint of the story. It's late 1800s, early 1900s. So you've got kind of that's the culture. It's a Western in that sense of that being that era. So it is a gun culture. So there's also a scene where people are reading the Bible around, the fireplace and praying that the werewolf doesn't come and get them. And it's kind of, that was something else I talked to Chuck about. I said, this is, that Western culture, that frontier lifestyle, you've got your guns and you've got your Bible.
Yeah. It's basically all you got.
And your neighbors.
And the people right next to you.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you hope they're good folk.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those top two panels, that second to last page really also builds the walled-in forest.
Yeah.
And just kind of
the shadow with the hand almost coming on her back there too.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, and then the last page, that's page 1. And I love that page. It's just gorgeous. Again, for some reason it reminded me of Unforgiven. I don't know why. There's just something about it. And then and the windowsill light coming through it, the reflection on that wall, that wasn't in the script. That was something that when I looked at that scene, that's just something that I just sort of saw. I was just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna drop that in there. That'll add a nice element to it. So that picture on the wall is Abigail's mother, who is deceased in the story. So she's basically, it's just her and her dad. So it's in a lot of ways, this is a father-daughter story. There's definitely a huge element of that, which was something else that appealed to me. It was one of the things I really liked about Alita, was that was really kind of a Mr. Miyagi, Danielson sort of story, but just with I guess a biohumanoid,
a Martian.
Yeah, right. I guess that's right. I got to go back and watch that. That is easily Robert Rodriguez's best film.
I really enjoyed it too. I hope it gets a sequel.
It needs one, man. It really needs one. It's just amazing. There was never one point in that story where I felt like, oh, this is an amazing special effect. It never took me out. I was always in the story. So, and I think those are the best special effects, where you're not focusing on, oh, that's amazing, that looks incredible, that's amazing CGI. You're just kind of you're wrapped up in the believability, the suspension of disbelief.
You're immersed. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what a good story should do, man. I mean, it should suck you in like that.
I think they really did that really well when she gets hit the daughter's body, and then she comes out of the building and she's just like looking out in the world, and she's just like her eyes are just like full of wonder and excitement, and you're feeling that with her, and you want to like explore that world with her, and that's when like you're hooked.
Yeah, that was I read that book in the late 80s, early 90s, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Delighted that how close they stuck to the source material, because it didn't need anything else, really.
It really didn't.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why a lot of the anime adaptations excel so well, because they literally just take it from the manga.
They do one for one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Goblin Slayer, perfect example, is My Hero Academia, and it does the same thing. They just take it straight from the manga.
Yup.
Well, and hopefully they'll do that with Akira if they ever get that off the ground.
Yeah. Jeff Stamper has a interesting comment. He says, enough sports. Yes, we haven't been talking about sports for a while, Jeff. I don't know if you're behind, but we haven't been talking sports for almost a good 45 minutes, 30 minutes. All right, let's get into massive layoffs at DC Comics and DC Universe. I'm sure you have an opinion about this, Brett.
It's
hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, all you need is 4 words for that, John. Get woke, go pro.
Right? Line them up next.
Okay. All right. So Spencer enjoyed my featured image of this. I think this is from like the latest issue of Justice League. I don't even know who this character is. I don't recognize him.
I don't either.
But apparently he's powerful enough to put the Justice League in chains.
Yeah.
And is about to execute them. So anyway, so we got multiple reports. I guess it was 2 days ago now, August 10th. The first, I think that the main report came from the Hollywood Reporter, and it came just days after Warner Media CEO Jason Kilar explained that he was restructuring the company in order to streamline decision making. So in this interview with the Hollywood Reporter, where he was talking about restructuring the company, Kilar said, So what these changes are largely about is me feeling very strongly that where a media company should go in terms of the future is to orient themselves as a consumer-oriented company. I like this image too. I thought it was appropriate.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Make a wish, boys.
I miss covers that have like word bubbles on them.
They don't do a lot of them anymore.
No,
Yeah.
They do annoy me when I'm trying to make featured images because I'm like, man, come on. Except for this one where it works. Yeah. I need the Virgin one. So then he detailed these changes represent prioritizing 3 different things. Number 1, a consumer orientation far more than a wholesale orientation. Number 2, going direct to consumer. And number 3, going global. He was also asked if there would be layoffs, and he noted there would be. He stated, we're not talking about layoffs specifically, but obviously there would be layoffs just given the nature of what we're doing here. So he literally was like trying to deflect, knowing that like massive layoffs were coming like 2 days. Like 2 days. And so then we would get here. Those layoffs came sooner than expected for DC Comics and DC Universe. The Hollywood Reporter reported that Editor-in-Chief Bob Harris, there should be a comma there, Senior Vice President of Publishing, Strategy, and Support Services, I don't know how to say his name, Hank Canals? Yeah. Vice President of Marketing and Creative Services, Jonah Weiland. Vice President, Global Publishing Initiatives and Digital Strategy, Bobby Chase. Senior Editor, Brian Cunningham, and Executive Editor Mark Doyle were all let go. In fact, the Hollywood Reporter stated that roughly 1/3 of DC's editorial ranks were being laid off, according to their sources. A separate report from Bleeding Cool's Rich Johnson also detailed a number of others were let go, including Andy Corey, famous for basically getting Vertigo axed when he hired, what's her name? Zoe and all those other folks. Zoe Quinn.
The Vertigo reboot.
Yeah. Jim Lee's executive assistant, Eddie Choi, international publishing, ad sales, and custom creative studios, Sandy Resnick, and marketing director, Sarah Haskell. He also added that director of publicity, Michael Schelling, and vice president of comic book specialty and newsstand sales, Jim Skolowski, also lost their jobs. Or Skolowski. It's probably Skolowski.
Well, hopefully, if they have a diversity and inclusion department, hopefully they lost their jobs too.
Oh no, they're in charge now.
While DC Comics was significantly hit, THR also adds that insiders also say the majority of the staff of the streaming service DC Universe has been laid off, a move that had been widely expected as Warner Media shifts its focus to new streaming service HBO Max. And then they also said layoffs also hit DC Direct. I don't think anyone was surprised with DC Universe. I mean, they moved Stargirl over to CW. They had canceled Swamp Thing already. Doom Patrol's on HBO Max, and Titans is probably soon to follow, or it might even go to the. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to the CW, or if it's canned after the 3rd season. So that none of that really shocks me, especially. I mean, it seemed the writing was on the wall after Swamp Thing was axed that DC Universe was going to go the way
they shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, that wasn't going to go anywhere anyway.
Unfortunate that show didn't get picked up for HBO Max. But so that's pretty much kind of who got laid off as far as the big names, I guess. Bleeding Cool's Rich Johnson did say that Lee would remain as the chief creative officer, or at least THR said he would remain, but then Bleeding Cool's Rich Johnson said that he would most likely be transitioned out of the position. And he stated that Marie Javins and Michelle Wells had been promoted to run DC Comics' publishing and would report directly to Jim Lee for the time being. He then stated that the DC Comics publishing lineup would be significantly reduced, with the main focus on Batman, Justice League, and Superman, as well as their digital line, which is the gay Aqualad story and the Gotham High Asian Batman who Alfred's gay and all the other stuff that's in that. there's like a menage a trois with like Batman, Joker, and the Catwoman or whatever.
Oh yeah, that was that high school one or whatever.
Gotham High, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And he says greater emphasis on digital and bookstore rather than the comic book shop, which that was already apparent when they got rid of. I think that's kind of true. I think that was apparent when they didn't continue with Diamond, and they just were like, we're done with Diamond. And they've been doing the Walmart stuff, and I think they were already kind of doing a lot of the bookstore stuff.
It kind of feels like they're covering, because I genuinely feel like this is a move to just eventually turn DC Comics into a content farm for everything else. And it just seems weird to me that they're saying we're going to stop focusing on comic book stores, which is, good business decision. I get that. But we're going to focus on these other kind of stores that are doing really poorly. Like bookstores are not doing well.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I think you might be onto something, Spencer, because I feel like these is just going to be farmed out, and I don't think that they're going to produce good books out of it until they get out of that, get all the vestiges of woke garbage out. And then you can write good books when you take off the constraints on people and let creators create. Until that happens, that they're not going to sell. That's why everybody is turning to Comicscape projects to look for new comics to read, because they want something traditional and exciting. They don't want this stuff that's constantly preachy and drawn poorly and everything else. They want the stuff that they enjoy, and they're not getting it out of Marvel and DC. And until they turn away from that, they're not going to sell shit. That's just how it is.
What do you make of these reports, Brett?
It's tough. I worked with Brian Cunningham a lot. I know Mark Doyle. I never worked with him, but Brian is a really quite a great guy. He gave me a break on Nightwing back in the day. I started working with Katie Kubert, who ended up being, who still is a really good friend and a damn good editor. I think she's still there. And I didn't see her name mentioned. I think there's, and seeing Bob Harris go out, who's been just sort of a staple in comics for a long time. It's definitely the end of an era. And, I think shakeups like these things are necessary. It's just part of business. I don't like seeing people out of work. I think some of these terminations were warranted, especially the Vertigo guy. That's complete mismanagement. It's tough, man. You got 10% unemployment. Let's just back out a little bit here. It's not, it's an industry. It's not just comics. You got 10% unemployment, and an economy that's obviously kind of starting to rebound. So it's tough. I feel bad for people who don't have a job right now, or are deemed an unessential worker. It sucks. That being said, I think Brian Cunningham will have no problem finding a place at maybe Valiant. He's a good editor. He was a senior editor, so he was managing. When I was there, I think he was managing some of the Batman stuff, because obviously he threw me on Nightwing, but he put me on a couple other things too at the time. So nice guy, great to work with, gave you a lot of creative freedom, and was one of those guys who, if you showed up on time and did a good job, he would continue to feed you work. And that's something that.
Guys.
Well, that's something that's sort of a fleeting thing. There's not many of those types of people around anymore. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's just, it's the same with me, man. You do a good job for me, I'll continue to hire you. Show up on time, good, do a good job, bring something to the table, contribute something from an artistic standpoint. I'm hooked. I'm completely hooked. There's
Make it worth my while.
Well, it's sort of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep not to talk sports, but to quote Bull Durham, you never F with a winning streak. Okay.
Right.
And that applies to comics, as well as in business. When you're on a roll, you keep going, until that roll ends, and they all do. So, Cunningham will definitely find a place to go. He might even end up back at Marvel. I have no idea. Some of those other people, they'll probably, they might find work in the comic industry, but they'll probably migrate to other industries of entertainment or something. So the sucky part is all those people relocated. They left their family. A lot of them.
Yeah, they went to California, right?
They all bailed out of New York. I mean, DC's in New York for 80 years, and then all of a sudden, we got all this free office space out in LA, which is basically what happened. DC Warner, Warner Brothers said, "What the hell are we paying all of this high-end commercial real estate in New York for, when we're all out here, and we've got all this space, and we can put everybody up here, and it's our buildings, and we own the land, and and we can consolidate." And some people at DC were excited about that because they were like, "Oh, great! Now I'm just not an editor anymore. I can get into the movies." And that's the attitude among editors these days, is they're not there to stay. They're not interested in staying there. So you get shoddy work, and they're also paid really, really poorly.
Everybody tried to see it as a stepping stone to different careers.
And it's no different at Marvel. Everybody wants to get into the movie. Unless you're kind of familiar with the industry, it's a separate wing. I mean, the two don't even talk to each other. There's the movie wing, and then there's the comic wing, and never the two shall meet. Which is why there's no consistency between the silver screen and the pages, which is the biggest complaint that I hear from people who are like my age, who are saying, "Hey, I want to get my kid into comics because I grew up reading all these great comics. What should I buy? He loves the movies." And I say, nothing. You won't find anything in the comic book store that even resembles what's on the screen.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I hadn't read a Guardians of the Galaxy book, and I hadn't really known about them until the movie. And then I went and bought a Guardians of the Galaxy book, and I was like, "Why does Drax look like the Hulk? What's going on here? It doesn't look anything like anything on the screen."
I worked on that book, and when I worked on it, the movie had just come out, and it was, or it had already been out. So there was some elements of the film in the book, like Drax, but Star-Lord, kind of looks the same.
He's recognizable.
Yeah, exactly.
If you did not know what Drax looked like in the comics before watching that movie, and you picked up a comic, you would have no idea that was Drax.
Right. Right, and they
look radically different.
Yeah. When I worked on it, it was all very similar to the movie, and I thought that was smart, and that also made it a lot of fun to work on and show people, because the first one had just come out, and people were just going bonkers for it. So.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a really difficult way to like almost change his costume too. I mean, we see characters change costumes all the time. I mean, Captain America gets a new costume, I feel like almost every year now.
But gimmicks, man, they're just dumb gimmicks,
Oh no, yeah, for sure. But
I mean, for Drax though, if you wanted to match him up with the movie, bringing people in, like you just have him like get blasted in the face or something, and it like messes with his skin. So now he has all these like looks like he has all the cuts on his skin or whatever, the scars or whatever, and then that, I don't know, that just seems like an easy solution to me. But I also do like understand why you would want to keep Drax what he's been looking like in the comics, and I would argue that they probably should have made him look more like the comics version, but I guess people might also in the film might have confused him for the Hulk.
No, those people, all that meat in the seats at the theater, those are potential customers, and I've just never understood why there's not some kind of coordination. When I worked on Superman for the New 52, Man of Steel was wrapping production, and we had some contact with Snyder and Nolan and Goyer. We had some contact. They weren't feeding us much. They showed us some screen grabs, and they were all black and white, which didn't help me. You know, I remember looking at that. I was like, I remember getting those reference photos, and they were the interior of the Kryptonian ship, and I was just, and they were all in black and white. I was just like, why did they even send these to me? I was like, what to do with this? You know, so I just made it gray. You know, bluish gray, which ended up kind of being sort of what it was. But you know, we were trying not to step on each other's toes. So, and that's one of the reasons why George Perez wrote such kind of a milquetoast story, you know, for that. That's why, because they told him, they said, you can't do a lot. You can't go crazy. You got to keep it sort of middle of the road so we don't conflict with what these guys are doing on Man of Steel. You know, so you ended up with just sort of this, villain that Superman fought around Metropolis, that fire, air, and water villain or whatever, that just wasn't very interesting. The art was beautiful. The art on all 6 issues that I worked on was gorgeous, and in fact, a lot of people, I remember reading in the comment sections on some of the comic book review sites, they were saying, if the story was as good as the art, we'd be in great shape here, but this story sucks. But it was not George's fault. He was given sort of an impossible.
He was held back, yeah.
I want to know what you think about where DC Comics goes from now. What do you think that AT&T has planned for the publishing arm? Do you think, as Rich Johnson says, they're going to trim the line? They focus on mainly just basically Batman, Superman, Justice League, and probably Wonder Woman. Do you think that they're going to be trying to maybe focus more on just collected editions, maybe even kind of fade out the single issues that are released monthly?
I think Jim Lee's the guy, the right man for the job, right now. He's a tremendous creative, so they're in good hands there. And Jim's great. Jim's the sweetest guy in the world. And from what I understand, great to work with. Marie Javins is also a great lady. I've worked with her, not directly but indirectly. A friend of mine was coloring a book for her, and I helped out on it. And I'm friends with her on Facebook. She's really nice. She's been around since the 80s. She was in the Marvel bullpen in the 80s.
Wow.
Yeah. So Marie is the real deal. She's I would call her kind of a gunslinger, one of the old gunslingers, even though I hate to call a lady old. That's probably not very nice. But she's old school, which is the highest compliment that I could give her. She understands story, art. Marie lives and breathes. She bleeds comics. So I think that promotion is a really good move. She's a tremendously capable and smart lady. And comes from an era in which people understood how to sell comics, which was certainly the 80s. And I definitely think they're going to trim the line. I mean, they're cutting people. So they're cutting people, meaning that the people that remain are going to have to do more work for less money, or for the money that they've got. So they're going to have to cut the line. Definitely. They'll scale it back to the things probably, they'll probably find a threshold of an average of 30 or 40,000 copies, whatever. They'll look at what's selling and what's selling consistently, and they'll probably roll with that. And then you're not, I see them just focusing on the main characters largely. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of risk taking necessarily from the standpoint of launching new stuff. What they do with the existing line, I have no idea, man. I mean, common sense says that you kind of go the other direction. You go back to what was working, which is, all the pre-woke crap. But at the same time, I say the same thing about Hollywood, and I say the same thing about all these other institutions, the media, cable news. We were talking about this off air. CNN. They don't make any money. I mean, nobody watches that network.
No,
and that's Warner Media owned too, or exactly. I think it's Warner Media.
So think about that. Think about that. What kind of change can we expect from Warner Media? I don't know. I'm not really expecting much, guys. I think that
No,
they're going to stay on this path and just kind of keep doing what they're doing. They think to a degree, and Nike found this out the hard way. They think to a degree that doing this, catering to this woke, this niche of woke is catering to young people, and therefore they're edgy and they're relevant, and it's kind of like from the standpoint of DC Comics or Nike, what they're trying to convey to the customer is, we get you and we're on your side and we support you and we're down with the struggle. I'm not joking. I mean, that's
no, you're not. I agree 100% as well. But that's funny to hear it.
What do you make of the idea that they might So I'm 100% sure Valiant is doing this. They treat their comics as like an IP farm for possible television and films. And I know Lion Forge basically said when they took over Oni Press and redid their whole thing, their whole idea was to create stories for film and television productions. Do you think that there's any that DC is actually pursuing that strategy? Do you think that is an actual worthwhile strategy?
Oh, definitely, they're going to pursue that. And that's kind of baked into the cake with the flagship titles and the stuff that they'll probably scale back and focus on. Frankly, anything in comics right now, to be honest with you, any kind of new IP or somebody taking a risk, frankly, it has got to have that built-in ability to go to live action or animation. It's got to have that. It's got to have that multifaceted. You got to be able to, you've got to be able to kind of take this IP and shine it through a prism, and then you've got all of these beams of light that comes out of it, and that's movies, TV, merchandising, lunchboxes, Scholastic. That was a smart move when I read that. You got to be able to find stuff that is.
They have a golden age. They have the golden books. Obviously, I'm about to have a kid, so I've been looking at this stuff. They have the golden books, and I was flipping through that stuff, and it actually was pretty decent. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. They have a little Batman and a Wonder Woman and stuff. So I think that is also smart too. I know it's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but I feel like there's a lot of people who think that you lose something from the comic book stories if they're made to also kind of be used to go into film or go into animation or you have DC has their superhero girls YouTube.
So the word
and stuff like that.
The word I was searching for a minute ago and came down with early Joe Biden senility was multi-purpose. These IPs have to be multi-purpose because, frankly, the risk that they take fronting all this money to produce this stuff, they're looking for a sure thing, and unfortunately, the culture within economics to a large degree, investment, the culture within America is very short-term thinking. Does DC have a 15-year plan? Do they have a 10-year plan? Do they have a 5-year plan? I don't know. It's not reflected in their books, and that's the problem here, is that there is nobody at the helm who has a vision where they want to take this thing in 5 years. Now, if they could sit down with the movie people and maybe talk to each other, considering that everything is multi-purpose and everything has to be adapted to film or live action or animation, it would probably be a good idea if they all talked and they coordinated. So there was cohesion there. I
remember when we had Chuck on a while ago, he actually talked about that when they were doing Batman the animated series, they were actually talking with the people on the Batman books quite often, and they were bouncing ideas off each other and really created a good creative environment. And you saw massive success with the comics with Dixon's Nightfall, and then Batman the Animated Series is one of the most well-loved animated shows of all time.
Absolutely. No, look, you've got kind of two bureaucracies here that just sort of, for whatever reason, refuse to talk to each other. And a lot of it is strife. It's like with Marvel, it's strife between Ike Perlmutter and Kevin Feige. Those guys hate each other,
Which I think they've kind of, it seems like they've resolved that. They put Feige in charge of everything. He does everything Marvel now. And at least that's what the reports say.
Yeah, and once they did that, it's kind of like, Doc Holliday in Tombstone, where he puts his guns down and he says, "There, now we can be friends again." That's what was going on there. Those guys were, knocking heads because Kevin had to go answer to him, or at least, he was was in the loop. And,
right.
Ike's a problem. I mean, I've been saying Ike's a problem for a long time. Ike supports Trump. So what? Ike also supports, basically wages that haven't gone up in 25 years. And it's led to the outsourcing of American comics to foreign talent because they don't want to pay anybody in America a living wage to create comics, writers included. It sucks. That's why you've got this proliferation of talent like Sean Gordon Murphy and others saying, what do I need this place for? I can go out there and create my own IP and I own it. And I'm not only going to make more money off the sales from the books, I'm also going to have a say in the multi-purpose, augmentation of, this character, this story, this IP. I can control the live action. I can sell it. I can not sell it. I can take I can just sell it to Sony and they can sit on it for the 20 years and I collect a check. I can do whatever I want. So, that's that's one of the elements that's really feeding indie comics right now is just the fact that creators now have far more power than they used to. And, it's fun to work on Superman and Batman. I don't have any regrets, but it's not like I made any royalties off any of that stuff up until, with DC. DC didn't start including colorists and royalties until 2015 or 2016. Of course, after I worked on the New 52, which that Superman run that I worked on sold like 200,000 copies. It had like 2 or 3 print runs. I would have liked to have had a share in the royalties of that, but I missed that window. And it's just kind of like, what is the point? I don't own any of this stuff. It's an honor to work on it. I don't regret anything, but at the same time, the future of my commercial art career is in indie comics. It's not with Marvel or DC.
So we were talking about how we wanted, like, they need just the comics and the film, the TV don't really communicate, and Marvel and Disney seem to have made the decision to put everything under Feige so that maybe there's a little bit more cohesion on the products that they're putting out. Do you think that AT&T might be doing something similar here with all of these cuts and then the restructuring of Warner Media in general?
I hope so. I think there needs to be kind of an Eisenhower, a supreme commander. I think that's worked out well for Marvel. Kevin's just he's sort of an outlier, man. It's they tried to do that with Jeff Johns, and it didn't really have the same effect. I like Jeff. I've worked with him. I don't know him personally. I think he's tremendously talented, and the guy used to be Richard Donner's assistant. He came up in film. In fact, he wrecked Richard Donner's car on the first day that they were working.
Oh my God!
Pulling his Suburban out of the gates at I think that's Warner Brothers right there on Pico in L.A. And a cement truck ran a red light and just took the entire front end off the Suburban.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. The guy could have lost. He could have gotten really hurt. But yeah.
Yeah, dude, no joke, man. Cement. I'm sure it was a full cement truck too.
It was
Can you imagine the force that thing had?
It was like a garbage truck or something. It was like a big.
It's like a movie.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It's like
holy crap.
Only things like that happen to Richard Donner, I guess. But I think that would be good to have somebody. I hope Jim. I think it's going to be hard to find a Feige, but I think that they maybe put together a creative duo or a triumvirate or something between 2 or 3 people to where they could all kind of coordinate and get a game plan together. And like I said before, have a vision for where they want to take, not only the individual books and the characters and the IPs, but DC Comics.
Well, wasn't JJ going to do that?
So JJ has a contract with Warner Media for like what half a $500 million is the report, and we know he's developing Justice League Dark, but it's unclear what else he's doing. They do want to like have him also, I think, do some like original IPs as well. I think the issue that AT&T and Warner Media in general have had since AT&T's been in control is that they haven't like you're saying, they haven't had anyone with a vision, and if they did have anyone with a vision, they got axed like within less than a year. Kevin Sujihara was out. Who is the guy? They had Johns ahead of the DC films. He's obviously still involved with doing. He was doing a lot of stuff with DC Universe. Who knows how much he's going to involve again with DC Universe basically being canceled and Stargirl moving over to the CW. And stuff like that, and where his Green Lanterns film is at. But then you also had the horror director came in. I can't remember his name.
James Wan?
No, it was someone else. He was like overseeing the DC film stuff. And then obviously you also have The Rock making waves with Black Adam and kind of what he's looking to do. With the DC universe, and obviously with Henry coming back and playing Superman.
I was so hoping that was going to fall through because I want Henry as the next Bond.
Oh,
ooh,
yeah. We'll see.
He was second in the running to Craig.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he was also second in the running to Bale for Batman. So I mean, he's been there. He's been there a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And he's a tremendously talented guy.
Is there? I guess it's not unheard of to play. I guess that would be a little bit difficult to play both Superman and James Bond at the same time.
Yeah, I think the Broccoli's would probably want one or the other. You got to, when you sign on to one of these things, whether it's Superman or Batman, I guess with the exception to Affleck, you're signing up for like 7 to 10 years of your life.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why John Hamm said he wasn't interested. There was talk at one point about John Hamm doing a older Superman, kind of like a Kingdom Come Superman, or maybe possibly an older Batman, a Batman who's middle-aged, which I thought was interesting because I like John Hamm a lot. I'm a big Mad Men fan.
Fantastic show.
That show made me having to explain what I do in advertising so much easier.
Yeah.
Up until then, people were like, "Huh? You draw pictures and then they go and they film it?" I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, "Oh, they're like Mad Men." I'm like, "Yes, exactly." But John said that he wasn't when he was interviewed. He was asked about it. He said at the time, this was when Mad Men was still going. He said he wasn't interested in doing that because it's just such a huge commitment, and it's kind of like, okay, well, this is your next 10 years. If it's successful, obviously they're going to keep that ball rolling. Just like Jackman. Look at Jackman, man.
Man.
Wolverine.
I had a brilliant idea for
or RDJ.
Not going to talk about it here because I'm still trying to work it out. But actually, I wanted Jackman to do a. I thought Jackman would have been perfect to reboot Dirty Harry, and do it as a period piece, and go like before Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry's 71, so go to like the Summer of Love or something, and have Jackman as a young Dirty Harry. How did he become that? You could do a Batman Begins for Dirty Harry. So I'm still trying to work that out with Amanda Milius, and so hopefully that'll work. We're trying to do it in a graphic novel form and then trying to sell it. So again, the multi-purpose, dude.
Well, yeah.
And John, the other thing about that is when you're a creative and you work on a book, let's just say you're Chuck and Graham working on Bane, and then Chris Nolan calls and David Goyer, and they're like, hey buddy, we want to borrow that guy. We want to borrow the big guy for the final act of The Dark Knight. Those guys get a payout. They're not going to see any points because that's unheard of, but the creatives will get a payout. And it's the same with any of that stuff. At least that's the way it used to be. And I think it still works that way when you've got ownership of some of those characters. And that's one way, you can obviously make a nice chunk of change in the comic book industry these days. And that's one of the good things about kind of this multi-purpose attitude that everybody has towards these IPs.
You talk about this multi-purpose attitude, and we talk about it, but I think the only people who have really been successful with it is Netflix, because they're the ones. We had Altered Carbon. You can say as like the first season was great. Second season, obviously, people have said was crap. I haven't seen it, but they went and they did an animated show on it. They're doing the same thing with The Witcher. We're seeing that they're doing an animated show on what's his name? His mentor. Oh my gosh, what is his name? Geralt's mentor, who's on.
Yeah, I like that show. I just wish it was just all Geralt. So
right, yeah.
I just want to hang out with Geralt and Roach. That's all I want to do.
Right, but they're doing that multi-platform stuff. They have the live action. They're doing they have an animated or an anime style show, and then we're seeing them. They're doing a prequel, which that's just kind of normal. But then I would also say one of the other people who are trying to do it too, that's kind of making waves, is Cyberpunk 2020, CD Projekt Red. They're doing their video game, and then they're doing an anime series. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing maybe a comic from them as well. I also think Games Workshop, as much as they're criticized, they are doing really well with their licensing and being with the multi-purpose. And I think that's really grown their brand in general. I would argue that their brand is probably bigger than the actual hobby and selling the miniatures. I would say that their novels, their comics, and especially their video games are probably more popular than the actual hobbyists that started it. So you're seeing it. I would say seeing it a little bit more in that realm than you actually are seeing it from the film studios, and it seems like these like little, maybe like smaller, more mobile studios are able to be a little bit more successful because they don't have as many potential bureaucratic roadblocks, and that might be why AT&T is doing a little bit of restructuring to trim the fat, get things a little bit in higher gear and rolling. And I guess maybe I'm just seeing that in general, the smaller companies are being able to adapt a little bit better to just our changing world.
Yeah, they're nimble, and they don't have quite the risk that these big guys have. You got all that overhead and all that payroll, and it's and you're only selling an average of 20 or 30,000 copies, which is like back in the day. I mean, you get canceled for those kind of numbers.
Immediately.
like the average back in the day was like 50. I mean, that was sort of like par, basically.
I think at the peak, I think you had to at least sell like over 100,000, and that's when they were selling the newsstand.
And that's when you're making money. And that was
low.
And that's the only time you see royalties. It's got to hit a threshold for the creatives to see any money. So you can work on a book, and it doesn't sell. You're not going to make any extra money off of it other than the page rate. But this is all just, again, short-term thinking. This idea. This stuff all has to be a sure thing, or as close to a sure thing as possible, because part of it is the amount of money that it takes to make these things into live action. CGI has. It's almost like this stuff is pre-engineered to fail, because CGI is great, but it's also really, really expensive. And it jacks up the costs on these movies and on these shows like you wouldn't believe. And that's why what The Mandalorian did was genius, because over 50% of all of their shots are practical effects. It's all in camera. And then, and then on top of that, when you shoot it in camera and you get it all in camera, you don't have to go into post and fix anything. That's saving money. They did a lot on that show with very little. It was basically kind of like a $250 million budget broken up into 8 episodes. I remember Tim was telling me what they were spending on that show, and I was just like, wow. I mean, they spent a lot of money, but at the same time, they got a lot of bang for their buck. And then on top of that, they created a bunch of tech, which is going to make filming CGI and stuff like that a whole lot cheaper going forward. But I always tell people, go for practical effects. It's cheap. And it looks good. We're talking about
Max,
kind of
perfect example.
There's an organic authenticity to to the traditional effects, and I like them a lot. Doug Jones, who did David Bowie's kid, who did Moon. That was like a $5 million budget, and the effects shots were a mixture of miniatures and digital matte paintings, and also some CGI, and it just looked dynamite, man. It looked great. So there's so much you can do now, and it's like with blood, we were talking about this, from the shooting blood into a movie. They're going to go with practical effects on that werewolf because it's cheaper and it looks better.
It looks way better.
Yeah, so. I mean, Swamp Thing, I think, really excelled because they went with the makeup artists and the practical effects for Swamp Thing, and it just looked fantastic. It looked so much better. And I mean, I would like, as much as CGI has increased, like, these makeup artists have been wildly innovative as well. And there's just so much cool stuff. That they can do
look at all the practical effects on the first Iron Man that Stan Winston did. And then you transition into the later films where, Robert's not in the full suit. He's just wearing it from like the waist up. And then he's got all these stickers all over his head. And it's just not the same, man. And it's the same with that first RoboCop, which, it took Peter Weller, 6 hours to get into that suit. I think they streamlined it on RoboCop 2. But it's a pain in the ass, and it's not very comfortable, but it looks great. It looks great on screen, and you save so much time, from the standpoint of staying within budget and keeping that budget small. And that's, speaking of RoboCop, you look at Orion Studios in the 80s. I mean, they cranked out movie after movie after movie, and it's largely because they were able to do more with less. You can say the same thing for Canon Films. Orion was certainly far more profitable and far more successful.
Yes, absolutely.
But there's something to be said to be having to do, more with less. That's the story of Blade Runner. I mean, that $6 million budget, which ballooned into an 8, and you've still got in-camera shots on that first movie that still look absolutely spectacular today. And that's because of the. You got the same guys that did Close Encounters, Doug Trumbull.
Oh, it's one of my favorite movies.
Same guys did the effects. A lot of the effects that they built for Close Encounters were used on Blade Runner. A lot of that tech was, Blade Runner sort of benefited from a lot of that tech in the motion control and the modeling and all that stuff. But I would love to see a return to practical effects because it's going to bring the budgets down, and then the attitude among the producers and investors is not going to be so do or die. So, oh God, we got to at least meet $250 million, $300 million. Otherwise, we're not going to break even. That's crazy. And that's another reason why they're going global. They got to spread that risk out.
Yeah.
They can't count on America to bail them out every time that they make a bad movie. So, hey, there's a billion Chinamen. Let's make stuff that appeals to them too, and fortunately some of the stuff that American audiences really like, so do the Chinese. Some of it they don't, and that's more the people like it. The communists don't.
Right. Yeah, I think we've kind of talked about that a little bit before, where we're with the movies and kind of lowering those budgets and hoping that Joker kind of sets that example with the practical effects and just the smaller budgets and being able to do $1 billion, and that's without China.
That wasn't a comic book movie. That was a.
Well, no, I'm not.
I know. I
in general.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, and the template for that was actually smart. It was similar to kind of what DC did with Nolan. You go out and find somebody tremendously talented, and let them do their thing. Give them some range and some leeway to take some risks.
Well, so speaking of risk, we're going to transition here. That's a good transition. DC and Rooster Teeth took a risk with this cover by Robin Eisenberg. So this is a variant cover for their Wonder Woman 1984 tie-in comic series. And so the cover was shared DC Nation Twitter on August 7th. And they were just like only one word for the Wonder Woman 1984 Rooster Teeth variant cover by Robin Eisenberg, rad. And then they said it comes out September 29th. You can kind of see the cover.
They're like,
there.
that was a word that they used in the 80s.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, rad.
Yeah.
I even associate that more with the 90s.
And the belief was that this was Wonder Woman, and I think it is Wonder Woman. But despite what Robin says, and I think the giveaway are the bracelets.
The mom jeans.
Yeah, the mom.
Those look like the same mom jeans that Obama was wearing not too years ago.
I forgot about that.
I like how she put a bit of herself in there by copying her Butterface and putting it on that.
I would say it looks like a lot of her characters are self-portraits to me.
Oh, yeah.
Just when I was looking through her Instagram, which I don't recommend you doing because it's a lot of not safe for work stuff. I think we have some in this story actually, so we'll get down there. But the release was quickly ratioed with a number of fans expressing their distaste and noting that the character looked nothing like Wonder Woman. YouTuber That Star Wars Girl wrote, WTF, among other things, Diana has blue eyes, not green, right? How the hell do you F up your own IP? I think she has brown eyes on screen. I think Gal has brown eyes, doesn't she?
Gal Gadot has brown eyes, yeah.
She does. Yeah. She does. Linda Carter has blue eyes.
Right.
And I think she's always had blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the comics she has blue,
yeah.
Former DC Comics artist Mike Miller shared a gif of Gal and wrote, "This is Wonder Woman Veruca Salt from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory." I think she's the one that eats the blueberry or turns into a blueberry or whatever. So you can see the brown eyes there too. And so there's Gal as Wonder Woman, and then Stephen Wayne who simply said that's not a superhero with the head face emoji. Pseudonym says looks like the gods revoked her beauty. Jack added the color scheme is cool, but the proportions greatly disrespect the character. And trust me, there are women who detest this imagery just as men do when it comes to obesity. Legit issue. Rooster Teeth tried, but sorely took an L with this shit. So Eisenberg responded to the criticism. She said on Instagram, so due to the subject matter of my art, I'm often asked to draw characters inspired by iconic women. Recently, I was asked to create a piece inspired by Wonder Woman in my own style for an upcoming one-off artist collab. I love drawing aliens with realistic body types, living their lives, comfortable with themselves. So I drew an alien character with a realistic body, wearing a more everyday version of the Wonder Woman outfit. So she's trying to say that that's not Wonder Woman and that it was like an alien character. I don't believe her.
I think it's a backpedal.
In what world is that realistic? I want to know, where is that body type realistic? The only place I could have remotely seen that body type is when one of the nights back years and years ago when I had beer goggles on and regretted the next day when I woke up next to it.
Have you seen Antifa? That's where that body style is consistent.
Well, yeah, that too.
Someone on Twitter today described it as Walmartian.
Yeah.
She's a pear. She's a pear. Yeah. I mean, she's a pear shape,
Yeah.
So she's one of those girls that on Match.com describes herself as curvy.
Yeah, nice.
Or I'd say she's just fat. But.
She continued saying DC decided they wanted to use this piece for a variant cover. In addition to the collab, I didn't realize that featuring a Wonder Woman inspired character with a realistic body type would be controversial. Apparently it is.
It's not controversial. Everybody thinks it sucks. There's nothing controversial about it. It's bad art. It looks like the Cal art style is taking over DC comic covers. This is like the soft bigotry of low expectations, and frankly, it's kind of like, everybody's lamenting this giant firing, when you get covers like that.
Yeah.
I think it's time for a little creative chaos within, editorial. Bizarre, man.
I mean, yeah. In what world does that get a cover? I mean,
look at John Buscema. Look at the decades of incredible artists, who set the bar, and the bar just keeps getting lower and lower and lower.
Well, most of my comics,
I compare covers to it's like you're trying to sell something, right?
Yeah.
And when you try and sell a house, you want your house to like look good from the outside. You want that curb appeal. A cover is the curb appeal for a comic. I see that, and it's supposed to be about Wonder Woman. Pass. No thanks.
Yeah.
Nicole, even as like you can say like, oh, it's a variant cover. It doesn't have to like show what's inside of it. I'm still like, it's still just bad. It's objectively ugly. I don't want to see what's inside.
Yeah, this is Wonder Woman. You know, this
is
that's Nicola Scott. I worked with her on Superman. Tremendously, incredibly talented
Australian, right?
Australian artist. She's a total babe. She's really good looking, and and really sweet. We met at San Diego not long after we worked together on Superman and hung out, and she's great to work with.
She was doing Fantastic Four, I think, when they rebooted.
Yeah, I mean, and that's that was Wonder Woman 77, which I worked on, which was supposed to look like the classic Linda Carter TV show, and worked on that with Jason Badauer, who's another really good artist, who now works with Ridley Scott. But I don't get it, man. I mean, this is just kind of like Nike co-opting Colin Kaepernick to be edgy or to be, they're like, this is how we communicate with the youth,
Yeah, there's just no way.
Too much Wonder Bread eating woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean, I grew up like most of my comic experience reading was in the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s, and the covers, like, God, just back then made you want to buy books.
Have you on Twitter there's a great account called the Spinner Rack.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I like that account a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the guy basically posts stuff from kind of 70s and the 80s, and I when this stuff comes up in the morning and I'm looking at this stuff, and a lot of it is stuff that I bought off the shelf and I remember, but it's interesting now sort of looking back at it. There's enough distance between now and the 80s where you can kind of look back at that and you can really see there was just so much talent in that bullpen at Marvel, and they had so many talented freelancers. I mean, they're just brimming with talent, and you really had to be a killer to go work in there. I mean, you had to have chops, man. And this comes down to, again, this normalization of everything normal. There's nothing normal about superheroes.
Mediocre.
There's nothing normal when you look at statues of Perseus or Theseus or David.
Hercules.
I've always argued that David is kind of the prototype for all superheroes. He's got a little bit big head. He's got huge hands, huge deltoids. There are very noticeable exaggerations that Michelangelo put into that sculpture to make him look heroic. Because there are things that make men look heroic, not just low angles. A broad chest, somebody who's athletic. And it comes down to this thing where if everybody can be a rock star or if everybody can be a superhero, then nobody can be a superhero. There's nothing special about everybody when it comes to their body type. Some people have the dad bod, some other guys work out 5 days a week. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's something different about the two of them, right? So I've always said, if superheroes were real, they would probably, especially the women, they probably look like Frank Cho, who all of his drawings, they all look like gymnasts, basically. They're athletic. And this is just, everybody can be a superhero. Hooray! Equality. Everybody can be special. No, I'm sorry. You have to earn that. You have to go out and make yourself special. You're not born special. You're not born a princess, honey. It's not the way the world works. You got to go out and earn it. Unless you're part of the Lucky Sperm Club and you've got an inheritance.
Well, that's how it used to be. It was something to aspire to. It was an expression of a role model.
Isn't that why those stories are told over and isn't that why Beowulf and the Iliad and the Odyssey and all this stuff and Perseus slaying the Kraken? Isn't that why it's told over and over and over again? Because they are inspirational and aspirational characters that we all want to strive to be. What is aspirational about this? I'm supposed to be diabetic? I mean, what is going on here with this?
Hey, let me be frumpy woman.
That looks like a hip replacement surgery, maybe like in 10 years,
and I mean,
maybe 5.
Yeah. But it's like but it's funny. It's like that looks like every single hardcore third wave feminist that you see on Twitter screaming and yelling about the patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Right there.
Yeah.
The only thing that drawing is missing is hairy armpits.
Yep. Oh God. Yeah. Just oh jeez, oh man.
Why didn't she include that?
Yeah.
Because shaving is something created by the patriarchy. It's meant to make women appeal to men.
There was also that controversy that they said they edited out like gals like armpits from the first Wonder Woman. You remember that? These people are like whining that her armpits were shaved.
Yeah.
Who's to say that that the girls on that island aren't don't like a bikini wax or something? I mean,
they had swords. Why would they not have razors?
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
This is just it's woke madness, and see that's what I'm saying. That's why I keep seeing like all these indie books doing so good. Like all these Indiegogos that pop up are just taking off like left and right. And a lot of the CG people that I know, my buddy Drew, his Captain Love books are doing great. Brian Kriskow's Six Gun Gorilla books doing great. A lot of Sim stuff, Blood Hunt's doing really good. Just ton of books that are doing well, and there's a reason for that.
I mean, look at with Tim and Mark in the Common America.
Yeah,
they got that manga guy to do all those beautifully painted covers. I think it's Art. Is it Artgem? I forget who they got to do those.
Yeah,
I don't think they got Artgem.
It's somebody that
they got a guy on DeviantArt called Sexy Rebuts.
I mean that guy obviously, part of hiring professional commercial artists, is that they know how to sell things because they understand why people buy things. They understand what sells, and that doesn't sell.
No,
that sells to a tiny niche audience that probably barely even buys comic books. So that is virtue signaling. That's not gonna make people buy comics or aspire to be Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot does that.
I think it harms their brand in general too. I think this harms the DC brand. When I see this,
absolutely,
it's just like, okay, DC isn't doing superheroes anymore. I don't need to. I don't regret not buying DC Comics anymore. I'm not missing anything. There's nothing that they're putting out that I don't feel like I don't have that. What is it? FOMO that these people like to fear of missing out that they try and say millennials have. I don't have that. I feel like, okay, there's nothing there that intrigues me, wants me to maybe go back and want to buy DC Comics again, as much as I love Batman.
Yeah.
It's not recognizable as Wonder Woman, and therefore it's why it failed. And again, I keep going back to this. There's a reason why a lot of the comic book guys ended up in advertising, because they know how to sell. The guy that created Green Lantern went on to go and create the Pillsbury Doughboy and a bunch of other iconic animated characters for advertising, and got paid a whole lot better. And had a full-time job with healthcare and everything and benefits. But that tells you right away that the advertising guys are trying to sell. They're trying to market. They're trying to get their product into the hands of as many customers as possible. So they hire people, artists and the like, who understand how to sell things. And, comic book artists, classically trained, they understand how to do this. And, Marvel and DC have been kind of outsourcing their art to these people. who are not professionally trained commercial artists who understand how to sell things.
Right. It's also a money saving measure, Brett, because they're saving money bringing these people in because these people they can get work done for a lot cheaper.
Yeah, you think she charges the same as Frank Cho?
No, I mean that's exactly it.
You get what you pay for. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're getting extra cheap labor, and that's the other portion of it. But
hey, do it for exposure.
Yeah, and that's probably the line that they're selling a lot of these artists. We'll give you this much. They make it sound like a great amount of money, and they're like, "You're doing it for the exposure. You're going to go somewhere in this industry, blah blah blah." Tell them what they're going to hear, and then the next thing you know, they're like, "Okay, the art's done. Well, we'll tweet it out, and that's good to go." Yeah, end of story.
It's sad, man. Because again, going back to the spinner rack, I look at, when I look at these old covers, I look at all of the, I look at the composition.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the gestural drawings of the artists of that era. They're all, they all probably had life drawing. They understand how to put together a cover which is compelling and makes you want to pick it up off the shelf. It's irresistible. You can't help it. It's one of the reasons, like with Clinton Cash graphic novel, we came up with the concept, and I wanted Sergio to do it because I knew that he would just kill it. He would make, the two of us would be able to create something that, whether you were liberal or conservative or not, or apolitical, would be irresistible not to go and at least just pick up and flip through.
Yeah.
And that's the hook. The cover's the hook, and then the interior pages. That's how you clean them and fry them.
Yeah.
But
that's what I was saying. The curb appeal. It's the curb appeal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this has none of it. This is. I don't even think the coloring is all that great. She's trying to do a warm cool, and it's not working out for her.
Trying to go for that 80s vibe, and it just doesn't work. If you look at, I think you showed it off in our article about the fixes, John. Steve Wayne's version is like the best 80s version.
Well, they did a bunch of Patrick Nagel style covers.
Yeah, Steve didn't have his out yet. I'll have to pull that up a little bit. So I didn't agree what Deviant Pork had to say here. He said they should capitalize on the success of the movie, make money, and that's what they do. Even a variant, it's weird, and we don't even know the main cover. So yeah, this is supposed to be Wonder Woman 1984 tie-in to the film, and this is the variant cover for that. It looks nothing like Gal Gadot, and the explanation that it's supposed to be some kind of alien who's just like wearing a Wonder Woman shirt doesn't even make any sense either. Why? Like, how does that have anything to do to tie in with your?
Is it like an alien that's a Wonder Woman fan?
That's what she claims it is, which I don't buy it because why she got the bracers on? Why she got the bracelets on? Why she got the tiara in her hair?
No cohesion here.
She was trying to draw a version of Nubia and just drop the ball.
Well,
So she did explain a little bit more on Twitter. She said, thank you so much to everyone for the kind words. A few of you want me to respond to your criticism, but I think you should reread my above statement. I was asked to draw a Wonder Woman-inspired character in my style for a separate collab. I drew this body type out of many options. DC then also used it for a cover. The end. I don't believe this is. I don't believe this story.
Let's say that's true. Let's say that's true. What does that say about editorial?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas, I would argue that so we were talking about the Batgirl cover that was the DC Villains variant with Joker, basically
pulling her face back in a smile.
In the smile with the gun hanging over her shoulder and stuff. That's still Batgirl, and that cover was freaking awesome. And it was like, oh, maybe I want to pick this up and see what's inside. Like you were saying, you want to look at it. You want to at least flip through it to see if it's something interesting. That cover was absolutely gorgeous that Raphael Albuquerque did.
Yeah, I mean,
especially if you know the story, you go, "Oh man, the Killing Joke. What are they? What's that got to do with this story? That's a good story."
My MO in the comic book store is, if the cover does its job, I pick it up, and then I flip through it to verify that the interior art is equal to or greater than what's on the cover. Hopefully it's the same creative team. Sometimes it's not. But if it looks good, I close it and I go to the cash register, because I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to sit there and read it at the shop. That's lame.
Yeah.
But this is how you sell comic books. And, they're interested in pushing. This is DC Comics has turned into a petri dish of social experimentation, as has a lot of entertainment. It's this weird little petri dish where they can play around with body types and genders and bullshit, and they're doing everything except telling stories that are compelling and speak to the human condition.
Yeah. Instead, I can read Goblin Slayer, where he's literally like going around killing goblins to protect his family and the people close to him.
I think we brought this up like last week, is that all of these, cheap talent that DC and Marvel outsource to places like Tumblr, they all believe that their individual stories, their day-to-days, are legendary epics to be told. But
because they've been told that since birth.
That
they're special. Everybody's special. No.
It's my generation, man.
It's not true, man. I mean, it's just not true. That was... I never heard that. I never got the participation trophy. When I played soccer in the 80s on my team in grade school, if we lost, you'd line up and you'd go past each other and you'd high five and you'd go, good game, good game, good game. When we would lose and the winning team would say good game, I'd be like, yeah, right. We were just like, we're gonna kick your ass next time. It wasn't about, there was a winner and there was a loser, and you went home and you dealt with defeat, and then the way you dealt with that was, there's always the next game. We'll get them next time, and that's how you become. You go kick their ass next time. That's how you become special.
Yeah, not to keep up with the sports stuff, but like even Michael Jordan in the Jordan documentary, he gets cut from the varsity team and he's like about to quit, and his mom is like, "What are you gonna do about it?" And then he goes down and like practices the entire summer. He obviously grows a couple inches as well, and needless to say, he becomes the Michael Jordan.
He was also getting into trouble. He was hanging out with a bad element, and he decided that it was time to get down to business and make something of myself. Nobody else is going to do it for you, and that's why that success that's earned, is twice as sweet, as maybe 100 times sweeter than this crap, which is just like. This is, again, I keep going back to the soft bigotry of low expectations, and that kind of describes that cover to me. It doesn't belong in comics. It just doesn't belong. That is not comics. That's some dumb gimmick.
Well, DC Comics editor Andy Corey, this was before he was reported to be fired.
I love this.
Or let go, or laid off, or whatever the terminology you want to use. He said, "Robin, I'm a DC editor and I love your work. The reaction to the Wonder Woman cover on Twitter was provoked by a small group of trolls and is not representative of the larger, sophisticated, and enthusiastic readership I've come to know."
All of his friends. Yeah. At the cocktail party.
That literally probably don't even read comics.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like 8 people. 8 people love that, and therefore everybody sucks that doesn't like it. And that's usually the case with a lot of these outrage mobs. Is they're not really mobs at all. They're like 3 or 4 people who kind of come off as being bigger than what they are. They've got some letterhead, with a logo. We're organized and we're coming after you or something. It's a joke. That's why I've always said, you just, you do what Gina Carano did. You just stand up to them and tell them to F off. And, 9 times out of 10, they F off. They go and harass somebody else who will capitulate.
Yeah, who will give them their attention.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say it's probably a lot more than 9 times out of 10. It's like 99 out of 100 or more that if you stand up to them, they go back and slink away.
You're just bullies, dude. I mean, that's all it is. This, they use projection. Obviously, they call everybody else a bully. They basically accuse everybody of what they. Oh God, what is that?
This is some of her other artwork that she has on her Instagram account.
Yeah, she's probably better suited to be doing album covers. You know, I'm not saying she's not talented. She can draw. I think her art sucks, but it's not anything I would buy. And I don't think she can color either. Oh God, Jesus. You know, it's funny, you know, amongst colorists, there's shop talk, right? So when I worked at Hi-Fi back in the day, we would sit around and critique other people's work. And most of the time we would sit around and look at good colorists, you know, and say, oh, how did he do that? Let's try that. And then you get like crap like that, you know, where it's just super saturated, like all the colors are just super bright and everything. And we used to say, if we saw something like that, we'd be like, oh, that guy's gone all Skittles. You know, he's tasting the rainbow. You know, it's just like super bright. Oh God, horrible. No focal point, nothing, just garbage. You know, that's somebody that learned to draw, and you know, like, you know, probably on the side, probably didn't. Maybe they did go to art school. I don't know. I don't know what they're teaching in art school these days, but that's a sad commentary on art school. If she's like a graduate of someplace,
they're obviously teaching that Cal Art stuff.
It's just such crap. It's such crap, you know, and they emasculate. You know, it's like, especially, I remember when Thundercats came out, I remember looking at, you know, obviously the show that we grew up with, which were muscular, big, heroic, strong, imposing characters.
Yeah.
You know, and then you end up with this blobby mess of cartoonish nonsense. And I was just like, oh, they just emasculated the entire look of it. So there you go. If you're going to do 80s, you've got to do Patrick Nagel, because Patrick Nagel was the king. You know, this guy was on top of the world when he was like 36 or 37 years old. You know, I mean, he's got the Duran Duran cover, which really kind of blew up.
Yeah,
I think is 82, 83, that's Rio. And then all of a sudden, you could not walk into any office building or any apartment. Nagel was everywhere. It's to the point where it was almost, it started to get kind of old. That's how hot Nagel was, you know. And then at the peak of his career, he died of a heart attack. So he went and he jogged in some marathon one day and then went and got in his car and died. I mean, it's tragic. The guy was super talented, did everything traditional. I love his work. I always have. I always thought it was really cool. And I used to ape his stuff in the 80s. I used to trace over it because I thought it was so graphic and so cool looking and so different. But if you're going to do an 84 tribute edition, that's how you do it. That's brilliant. You even got the flash dance, all the girls.
Yeah.
The neck out real big and then cutting the sleeves off. And then you've got the exposed shoulder. You know, it's perfect. You got the ripped jeans, the Joe Elliott jeans, the big hair. You know, that's awesome. I'd buy that.
Yeah, I would absolutely buy that. Hell, I'd get a print of that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, honestly, I've been looking at prints of Nagel online. I want to get a framed Nagel print because I think they're just cool. You know, and I like to immerse myself in that era because it's from a creative standpoint, that was really a golden age of entertainment.
Yeah.
What's that?
So we did a story where a bunch of artists basically redid the cover.
Cool.
Some of them did it in their own style.
Is that the Greek dude?
This is Wonder Woman. Oh, you're talking about the artist? Yeah, that's George.
Right,
Alex Sopolis. It's hard for me to read now because I
know
zoom out Greeks too much to try and get the.
Can't they consolidate those last names?
Do what they did in The Godfather, where it's like, oh, what does he say? Your name is Corleone now, because that's where you're from, because he couldn't pronounce his last name. Here is Amaran's. Obviously, he likes to exaggerate. That's what he does. This is Dylan's.
Cool.
Here is Ashian 101. I like that one. I like how they put the stars on her pants.
That's cool. That's very cool. I think I remember jeans like that back then. The rolled thing. I definitely remember the girls wearing.
I think that's coming back.
It is, and so are the
back.
high-waisted jeans. I got a bunch of girls that live next door to me.
Yes, the high-waisted jeans definitely. And I think this is coming back too. The exposed shoulder and stuff.
Crop.
And then with the knot and everything too.
Madonna did that too. That was also she was also such a trendsetter back then.
I think we can thank Stranger Things for a lot of this, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think all things come back. I also think the fact that Gen X is in their prime earning years is another reason why you see a lot of this stuff kind of coming back. I mean, the advertisers. I mean, if you're middle aged right now, you're the key demographic to most commercials because you're making money. I mean, you don't really make any money in this country until you kind of hit 40. Because you've been around a while, at least kind of doing something and doing it well. Yeah, but I mean, it's all this. It's just like bell bottoms, sort of like the boot cut went into bell bottoms, and now it's sort of
doesn't come back.
No, I know that was the '70s thing, and that was big. And some of that hippie stuff kind of came back in the '90s and then resurfaced in the 2000s, and now you've got that style circling back to the '80s, which was the skinny jeans, which I've been
wearing the jumpsuits now.
Yeah.
Again, I was just like, I don't like them, but apparently they're also hard to get in and out of when you have to use the restroom.
Yes,
I've heard.
It's all one piece, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to strip. God.
Yeah.
How weird.
Yeah.
Seems like an awful lot of work.
Yeah. I like this one.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's almost got like a Dazzler vibe. She's just missing the microphone.
And it's also got that Nagel vibe to it too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And then this one was just a completely different design by I think this is Florence Lupin.
Those are either like Oakleys or they're gargoyles, which were the gargoyles were made famous by Arnold in the first Terminator. Those are the sunglasses that he wears. And then obviously Oakleys were like huge in the late 80s. Yeah. Everybody had to have a pair of Oakleys.
I think people were still wearing those like in the 2000s too.
Yeah, the military guys love the Oakleys. I'm not sure why. I never asked them, but they always love to wear those things. They still do.
One. Here. I think there's another one that I retweeted. Let's see if Twitter will cooperate with me. We can show it here.
I'm so glad you showed me how to do that share screen thing, John. I'm going to have to use that on my next video.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Here it is. This one. I like this one, too. She used the stars.
Like the jean shorts. Yeah.
And then instead of like the bracer, she's got like all the multiple bracelets and stuff. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we used to wear those. They were braided bracelets that we used to wear when I was in like 4th and 5th grade, and like a girl would make one for you and then give it to you, and that was like a big deal,
And then they became like the seashell things,
right?
In the later '90s,
especially the chokers. They would wear those real tight with the seashells.
I had one of those.
Dude, I like stumbled across. I was watching Pluto TV, the app, the other day, which I think is owned by Viacom, and they had
CBS.
MTV was running the first season of The Real World, which is shot in '91, debuted in '92, and I watched it in '92, and I actually know a couple of those guys. I got to know a couple of them. The artist Norman, the gay artist, and then Andre, who was the guy in the band. And it was such a trip watching that show, man. I mean, not only early '90s New York, but just no phones. The phone is this, it's this, it's not this.
Yeah.
This is not the phone. This is the phone. Hello, and like the phone's like an issue in the house. People not getting messages, and like all of kind of these old world problems. And it's kind of refreshing and fun to go back to that and see how life was pre-digital, because that's large. There's not a computer in that house, not one. In fact, the writer Kevin types on a typewriter.
Jeez.
So he writes music reviews, and Kevin's still around. I mean, he's got like a I think he ended up working at BET or something. But it's just kind of fascinating to watch that show and to see, quote unquote, the way we were because it's kind of a radically different world. Devoid
I don't think most people had
all
computers until the 2000s. I feel like home PCs weren't really proliferate until the 2000s.
I had a home PC that had a black screen with a green blinking cursor that I used to write term papers on, but I did not have a graphic interface. I had video games. We had video games with a graphic interface, but at that point in time, if you really wanted a graphic interface, you kind of had to buy a Mac. That was the first graphic interface I ever saw. Right. Was a Mac. In like 8th grade, probably like 80, 88, 89, something like that. But that show was funny because I was just like, oh my God, this is because the early 90s were a lot like the 80s. I mean, a lot of that kind of spilled over from the standpoint of culture and styles and everything.
We got a question on Twitch from DarkSage9117. Thank you for watching us on Twitch. Thank you for finding our channel. I appreciate that. It seems as if DC these days are only interested in Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. I love the MCU and what Marvel has done with their comics and movies and what Disney did with the MCU. And look at the diverse characters Marvel has. I feel like DC, outside of animated movies, cannot find an audience for their films. It's more of a statement than a question.
I agree with him, and it's probably because, and I've always said this, DC's always trying to play catch up to what Marvel does. They don't want to set the groundwork. They just want that instant gratification. So they came out a little too fast. They didn't give enough time to develop, and now they're trying to walk back and kind of start from the ground up. So now they have to focus more on the Trinity.
To me, I feel like. I don't know. I feel like there is that. I think DC has an audience. Like I feel like I am part of that DC audience personally when it comes to the films. I actually enjoyed Man of Steel. I enjoyed Batman vs Superman.
Yeah, I loved Man of Steel. I thought it was great. I had some small issues with it, but overall, great film.
Yeah, Justice League. Obviously, I had huge issues with.
You and me both. Yeah,
but I thought I think that has to do with like what we were talking about a little bit earlier, is that they were dealing with a lot of the bureaucracy came in and were starting to mess with Snyder's vision and what he had planned. I think what Brett was saying earlier, they were spending so much money and they wanted to like get that certain return. They were expecting kind of almost, I would say, Avengers style returns with Batman, with definitely with Justice League, and I would probably argue maybe even with Batman vs Superman.
Definitely.
And I think that really kind of hurt the creativity of the DC films, because I thought the DC films with Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman were separating themselves from what you got with the MCU, because the MCU at that time was they had moved away from they were moving away from stuff like Winter Soldier, and they were doing more of the lighter stuff, and then we saw what they came out with Thor Ragnarok, and I know Don loves that film, but I mean I don't like it.
I have a hard time with it. I still think the best Thor movie is Branagh. The
first one.
Yeah, Branagh is. Yeah. Kevin Branagh is unbelievably talented actor, talented director, has a vision. That first Thor had a great story. It was a redemption story, obviously.
Yes.
But you bring in a Shakespearean,
had the romance too.
Yeah, and it was good. There was good tension there, and there was also good humor in that movie. That was more along the lines of kind of like a Superman the movie, in that sense, and also Nolan used Superman the movie as a template for Batman Begins. And it was kind of like
Batman Begins is so underrated.
It's the best of the three.
That's my favorite one of it.
I love Batman Begins.
Absolutely the best of the three. And part of it was that Nolan and Goyer didn't think there was going to be a sequel or a trilogy. They didn't have that planned. They've been very open about that. They gave it everything. I mean, they didn't leave anything.
Why did they call it Batman Begins then? They just thought it would be a one-off origin story?
I think the intention obviously was to have a sequel and to kind of go the route of the Keaton films and do as many as you can. But at the same, it's never it's never a sure thing when you're rebooting something like that. Especially at the time, Nolan was still kind of I don't want to say an independent filmmaker, but I don't think he had ever really done anything on that scale. That was right. I think he's been on record saying that was probably the biggest budget he had at that point. And he and Goyer, I don't think they had any idea that it was gonna have that kind of reaction. You know, I mean, it went crazy. That was a crazy. I saw that movie like 5 times in the theater.
I saw it on IMAX in London.
I couldn't get enough of it. I just
good.
It was so
2005.
good. Yeah, and it still holds up. Katie Holmes bothers me less now as we get kind of further away. She really bothered me in the beginning. You know.
Well, compared to the second one, Katie Holmes is far superior in that role than Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I agree, and she's also better looking.
Mm-hmm.
That helps a lot.
Hey, we're selling things here. You know, it's like they didn't go out and they didn't hire Christian Bale because he's kind of good looking. You know, they hired him because he's handsome, and also he's the rugged kind of handsome that you get with a Jackman or a Crow or a Mel that doesn't intimidate dudes. You know, you've got the Brad Pitt handsome, which is like, that's like an icky. Like the girl, like your girlfriend or your wife is going to be like all over Brad Pitt when you're watching that movie, and that's in the back of your mind. You're like, yeah, she likes him. He's pretty. He's almost pretty enough to be a girl. You know, you don't want that,
especially in Legends of the Fall when his hair is all down.
Yeah, he looks like a chick, man. I mean, you don't want that in your hero. You want to have some element of masculinity, and that's something else the left does. Is they're just going for like this androgyny. You know, I mean, is that Wonder Woman cover even a woman? Are we all assuming the gender of that woman on that cover? I think we might.
It's an alien,
right? She could be a hermaphrodite. She could be whatever.
It could have an alien gender. It could have a gender we don't even know about.
What if she's genderless?
Too radical. Then it's a virtue signal.
I do want to get back a little bit to what Darksage was saying. He's saying he feels like DC outside of animated movies cannot find an audience for their movies, and then he goes on to say, and apart from Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, DC does not seem to want to give any other superhero a chance to catch on. Everyone knows and loves Batman, but why just make stuff about him? Why not follow what Marvel is doing? I disagree with that. I mean, I think they gave Shazam a huge chance. I loved Shazam. I thought Shazam was great. They did an Aquaman film. I have issues with how, I mean, I've spoken about that plenty, how Aquaman is characterized as like the surfer bro. I much rather have my King of Atlantis, who is a brooding king who's also trying to juggle all of these like political things, all his allies, and then his enemies, and then he's got the whole like the politics of Atlantis, politics of the Justice League, the politics of the United States, the politics of the world, and he's got all of this like burden on his shoulders, and he's trying to do that, and that's the Aquaman that I like. I don't like the let's go surf, bro, and like let me sit on Wonder Woman's lasso and make
they tried
jokes.
to do. They tried to kind of do a Thor with that movie. They tried to kind of
absolutely they did.
Yeah, it was definitely a redemption story. I don't think it was done. I don't think it was really done all that well. I think Patrick Wilson. I think Patrick Wilson steals that movie, frankly.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and
the Black Manta suit.
Yes, the Black Manta. I love it.
Patrick Wilson steals Watchmen for me. That is a really talented dude.
I don't know.
We don't have to.
No, we can get into this. We're fine. We're in the final hour here. We're good. What's the guy? He plays Freddy. He replaces what's his name in Freddy?
Yeah, Jackie
Earle.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic.
That's Kelly Leak, man.
He is the perfect Rorschach.
Yeah, Jackie Earle Haley, right?
Yeah.
That's Bad News Bears, Kelly Leak. That's who he is to me. And then all of a sudden he's Freddy Krueger and he's Rorschach. I was just happy to see him getting work. He's a good actor.
No, he did something recently too. It was like a small role, but he was awesome in that as well. I forget what it was. But no, I love that. I mean, the comedian is great. I mean, I love the Watchmen.
Oh film. Yeah.
So there's so many great performances. And even the guy who plays Vite does a really good job in the scenes he's in. Yeah, and he was kind of a no-name. I had never seen him before, and I thought he was really, really well done. I've always said I think that the movie and the way that Zach tackled the squid and everything, I think the movie's better than the book. I think the movie ending and everything, the adaptation, I think he actually made it better than the book. Have you seen the they added in like these animated portions?
Yeah, no, I've got the ultimate cut. My favorite Watchmen is the director's cut. I've seen the theatrical, the director's cut, and then the Black Pearl cut or whatever it is, the ultimate cut. And I find that very distracting. I think Zach's director's cut is the perfect cut of Watchmen. It's just fantastic. There's a lot. There's quite a bit of ode to Blade Runner in that movie too, from the cinematography and also Tyler, what's his name's music. Gosh, movie is just amazing. Zach is such a purist, and really it's like because Batman versus Superman had trouble, that shook the confidence of the powers that be with Zach, and that's when they said, oh well, on this next one we're gonna help, and they stick their fingers into everything, and that's why Justice League was such a mess on top of Zach's own family stuff, which obviously came at but now it's like we're starting to see all this Snyder Cut stuff teased, and you start to realize that wow, this guy had a vision.
There was a vision, which is what we said they were lacking. Yeah. They had it. Sidelined it.
It's like Nolan had a vision. I think and it's interesting because the Marvel movies really did start to get really dark. I love Winter Soldier. I think that's my favorite Marvel movie. One of them, it's neck and neck with Iron Man. Civil War,
fantastic movies.
I have a hard time watching Civil War. It's so dark.
Civil War hard. To me has the same issues as Batman vs Superman, but the issues are blown up more. I think.
I'm just too partial to Civil War just because I'm a giant Spider-Man fanboy, and that was exciting for me.
I read Mark Millar's.
Everything else.
I mean, I was there every month grabbing Mark Millar and Steve McNiven, so I was kind of expecting something similar. It really isn't. There's very few elements out of that arc of Civil War that Mark did, which I thought was brilliant, that ended up in that movie. My biggest problem with that movie is watching Bucky kill the Starks. That's a horrible sequence, and it's hard. I get it. The Cap's, best friends forever. That just stretches it to me. I think Cap would take issue with that, but at the same time, Bucky's brainwashed. So is it?
Right.
It's tough, man. It's tough. But I will say, I think the Russos are probably two of the best action directors in Hollywood right now, from the standpoint of telling a story. I don't think they're great storytellers, but they know how to film action.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I think Endgame exposed their storytelling.
Oh, yeah. I've only seen that once, and I was thinking the other day, maybe I should go back and rewatch that. And I was just kind of like, I don't know. I think I'd rather rewatch Yellowstone or something,
I've only watched it once, too.
It's just,
like
dude.
Skywalker, one and done.
Yeah, man. It's just like, it's too much of a video game to me. There's not enough story there. It's all spectacle. And again, it's just wall-to-wall CGI. And, and I require more than that.
I definitely agree with you. So one of the things that I kind of got off topic here a little bit, but he said he feels like DC outside of animated movies cannot find their audience. I actually think their animated films have been severely lacking the past couple of years as well.
Yeah.
I tried to watch oh my gosh, why am I blanking on it? The guy with the mask on his head, the bandages.
Oh, Hush.
Sorry.
Hush.
Yeah.
Right.
Hush. Thank you. I literally saw him. Yeah. So Hush, I tried to watch that and the animation was just
the quality. I don't know what studio they're using right now, but they're doing it on the cheap and it looks like crap.
Yeah, and I was just like I just turned it off. The animation just drove me away. I didn't even care about the story because the animation was so bad. And I even the other one that they have the one where he's in like it's the Jack the Ripper story, Gotham by Gaslight. That also had the same like crappy animation, and I was just like, please just go back to Batman the Animated Series or Justice League Unlimited.
The studio that did the Dark Knight adaptation and also Batman Year One was very good. Those were two good studios. I don't know if they were the same, but they.
That animation was fantastic too. Yeah,
really, really top notch stuff, and it was funny. It was the same in the 80s. I had a hard time watching anything that the studio Deke did. They did like Inspector Gadget, Mask.
Sonic.
Yeah, it just didn't look as good as Toei, which is the studio that did Transformers and G.I. Joe and a couple other things. Their stuff looked really good. You know, you could always tell the studio. I'm trying to remember who did the same studio that did Thundercats also did Silverhawks, and that was a good studio. They
was
produced
that Filmation?
No, that's
Filmation
He-Man.
was He-Man. Yeah, I know they did.
That was He-Man and Bravestar and She-Ra. And yeah, dude, I mean, Filmation did great stuff outside of the rotoscoping, which I know they get criticized for. They did, dude. We wouldn't even have '80s cartoons without two people, Lou Shire and Ronald Reagan. You know, because it was Reagan that repealed the law that you couldn't do any toy advertisement over 30 seconds. Now, that was an FCC law.
Right.
And that was in place all through the 70s. And then Reagan comes in office in 80, and he said, I'm not going to sign that. I'm not going to re-up that. I'm just going to let it expire, and I'm going to let the market dictate. And that's when, the guys at Mattel reached out to Lou Shire and said, hey, we want to do this 2-hour special, you know, with He-Man. And we've been doing these mini comics that are in the blister packs, but we want to do a 2-hour special. And Lou Shire's, you know, sitting there thinking to himself, you know, like the businessman that he was, how do I get these guys to spend a little bit more money so I can do 66 episodes and keep my entire staff working year round? So he said, hey, for a little bit more money, I can get you a year's worth of episodes. And that's how it worked. If you watch the Power of Grayskull documentary on Netflix, it's all in there. And they clearly talk about Reagan and the FCC and the ruling and how he didn't re-up it. It was this rule that had to have his signature in order to be re-upped. He didn't sign it. Yeah. And that's the beginning of the 80s toy. Those shows were just advertisements for toys. You know,
they're still great.
I know. You know, I did a stream with Flint Dilley and a couple of other guys. Flint Dilley and oh God, I'm blanking. I know his wife, Misty. Anyway, we were talking about this.
Come on, Joe.
It didn't occur to me until I was probably in my 30s that those were all TV toy commercials. But it's like I was telling those guys who wrote all that stuff back then. Flint was on G.I. Joe and Transformers season 1 and was kind of the story architect for the movie Transformers the movie. And I told him, I said, you know, the messages that are in those shows are really good. Looking back on them now, you know, they shaped all of us as boys back then, and they're wholesome. You know, and they still hold up. You know, it's they're very sincere in that sense, and they're very authentic. And I think that's why those things are why those shows still hold up so well today.
Oh, I still watch the G.I. Joe episodes on the Hasbro channel that they have on YouTube here.
Yeah, when the lockdown was going on, I forget what app. There was an app that made all the G.I. Joe seasons free. It was Paul Dini. I was on a show with Paul Dini.
Oh, cool.
Paul Dini and Flint Dilley, and which was fun because those guys were all over the place during that era, writing on all those shows. I think Dini started out at Masters and then kind of moved over to Transformers and some other stuff. But it was such a blast because I was the target demographic. You know, I was a 10-year-old boy that's exactly who they were marketing to. So it was fun to be the guy who's now grown up, middle-aged, talking to these guys about these stories and these characters that they created back in the 80s. And
you're saying that they were trying to market products to boys?
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah. I mean, you know,
you want to talk about the biggest vacuum in entertainment right now. It's marketing to boys. And that's, you know, every story that I try and tell, I try and make it cater to boys because nobody's doing that.
The Japanese are.
Japan, I was just gonna say that.
Exactly. The Japanese are the only ones carrying the torch anymore.
Yeah.
That's it, and that's a shame because, you know, once upon a time we had that. Because man, it was great. You know, you always had that in like even your macho action cartoons, which we loved. We had that all over in there, and even the little snippets. Knowing is half the battle. Like
I love those. I told those guys. I even though
watch out for that fire. Hey, barbecue.
They make fun of that stuff now. They thought it was hokey back then.
I'm a computer.
You guys really should watch that. The Power of Grayskull. It's a doc on Netflix. It's really well done. It was actually produced by Adam Goldberg, who created the Goldbergs.
Goldbergs, yeah.
Which is a great show. That's like the Wonder Years. That's like my generation's version of the Wonder Years, basically.
Right.
It's got a couple guys in there who I'm really good friends with, Val Staples and Emiliano Santalucia. So it's fun to see them, guys that I've worked with in the past, in this doc. But it was just really fascinating to see the development of the character from the standpoint of this in-house Mattel creation to then becoming a $1 billion franchise by the end of the 80s. And, He-Man toys, I mean, Transformers didn't sell as many He-Man figures. I mean, He-Man was the elephant in the room during that era.
They've got a really good He-Man episode for the toys that
made us.
Yeah. A lot of the guys that are in that episode are in the doc.
Okay.
Only it's like a 2-hour doc, so they really get into it far more intensively than they would.
Do they talk about how She-Ra killed He-Man?
Oh yeah, they get into all that stuff. I mean, She-Ra oversaturated the market. I mean, that's from the standpoint of a viewer back then. I remember that because He-Man was just He-Man, and then all of a sudden, when She-Ra came out, all of us dudes back then were like, He-Man's not as cool anymore because it's got this chick element, and we want something that's exclusive to boys. We don't want to share with the girls. And then
we don't want Barbie.
So you transition from He-Man into G.I. Joe and into Transformers, and then Robotech comes along, and and when the planes explode, there's no parachute, and they're killing off major characters. Within the first 3 episodes, Roy Fokker goes down the first 8 episodes.
There was I know that there was a big deal though, because when they took those 3 different anime things, because they were all different.
They were. Carl Matchik was the guy that.
Yeah, because Macross Saga was different from
Southern
Cross, and then when they came out with New Generation,
right,
that was completely different. They were 3 different animes,
but they somehow. I've watched them all since.
Yeah,
because that was also free on Pluto. There was I remember they were showing all of them, and I went back and there was the original broadcast version, which I bought on VHS tape. I have the original FHE tapes still to this day, and but I went back and I rewatched it, and I kind of forgot how good it was and how sophisticated it was in comparison to American animation, and that's the first thing that I picked up. I saw in Robotech a lot of more of the same stories that I saw in comic books at Marvel and DC in the 80s.
Well,
more sophisticated stories.
I thought that they did a good job. Like I thought Harmony Gold did a good job, and they get a bad rap because there's a lot of people that were very very much purists for Macross, and they're like the Japanese Japanese version's far superior, and they went and gutted it and blah 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 blah, and Harmony Gold was a blight, and I'm like, no, Harmony Gold did a good job.
Harmony Gold's responsible for that IP being alive and well in America. My buddy Kevin McKeever runs Harmony Gold, and that guy works his ass off to maintain Robotech. Our version of Robotech is still alive and well, with new merchandise and all kinds of stuff.
Well, I know
their dub of the original Dragon Ball. When we found that was actually pretty fun. That was pretty good.
Well, there's gonna be some stuff yet to come too. I really believe with Robotech, there's gonna be there's gonna be at least at some point some kind of live action. Whether it's a show, whether it's a movie. And then there'll probably be another animated feature that comes around, because they had that one. Oh God, what was it?
Macross Plus was fantastic. It was really well done.
They had one about 10 years ago. God, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but there was one where it was a continuation, and it showed Rick Meyer's fleet had been kind of decimated, and they were trying to it kind of tied a lot of stuff together. Like the Invid were in it, and there were a bunch of other stuff in it, Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I can't think of the name of it right
Yeah,
up.
Sony's got the option, on Robotech, and originally it was going to be Tobey Maguire was developing it, and then when they were interested in Leo, and it's kind of bounced all over the place. But at this point, technology is the point where they could really do that justice with a live action. I'd love to see a series. I'd love to see that go to Netflix.
Yeah,
or
I
Amazon.
think a series would be the way for that to go because
2 hours is not enough, man.
Yeah.
It's just not. You can spread that out. It's like trying to do a 2-hour version of Dune or something.
Yeah, absolutely. There was so much stuff.
Which is what they're doing. Well, they're splitting it up.
No, they broke it into 2.
Yeah, they're splitting it up into 2 movies.
Yeah, thank God. As much as I love the Lynch version, I'm excited to see this because I love Denis. That's a talented dude.
Do you care about spoilers?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I've probably
read the
seen
book,
it all.
right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first movie ends with So the first movie ends with Chani and Paul having a little fun during the orgy.
I don't remember that. But I haven't read it since high school. So.
It's when Jessica takes over the Reverend.
Right, Reverend Mother.
Yeah, she becomes the Reverend Mother of the Fremen or whatever.
Interesting.
Their like wise woman dies, and then she takes the whatever it's called, the
water of life.
The water of life, and she like breaks it down in her body or whatever. It'll be interesting to see how they film that. I'm looking forward to that. But that's kind of where it ends. So we don't get to see the Dune wall get blown up yet, or the or the army of like sandworms attacking.
Right.
And the Fremen army just running over. I forget what the city is called. That's on the other side of the Dune wall.
Well,
yeah.
Now I'm curious, Brett. Did you have when you were a kid? Did you have the Holy Grail of GI Joe toys? Did you have the USS Flag?
No, but my buddy did. I had a friend that.
Yeah, I had a friend that did, and I wanted that thing. I bugged my parents for that thing. Like, I have to have this.
Actually, I knew 2 kids that had it. I was, and they were both rich. Both parents had a lot of money. My one buddy Mead had it when I lived in Denver, and then I remember my best friend Ian in 3rd grade. I remember going over to his house the first time, and I walking into his room and seeing it, and it's like a desk. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I mean that thing was huge.
It was amazing.
I had the Sky Striker, and I thought I was big time because I had the Sky Striker, but
Yeah, no, I mean those guys, they made all their money on those vehicles, the same as Star Wars. Those, it's funny, the figures are basically kind of lost leaders, and then they get your folks to drop $20.
Yeah,
or 10 or 15 bucks on a Sky Striker, or
here comes along the USS Flag, and it's like 100.
That was $100. Yeah. I had Vehicle of Ultron, which was, and I also had the Lions, and I think you dropped about a deuce on those too. I mean, you dropped about $100. It was somewhere between $80 and $100 on both of those things. They were Christmas, so they were big ticket items that you could.
Oh yeah.
Hope and pray for. In and around that time, but. Yeah, I mean, that was a fun era, and I think you could do that again. I think you could have a bunch of, toys that were marketed to boys, via cartoons and episodes if you wanted to. If anybody was interested in trying to make any money off young boys aged, 10 to 13.
Well, I'm not sure.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I'm not sure they want manly boys.
They didn't emasculate them.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want manly boys. We gotta find the toys now that we can market to the lady boys.
I know, and I'm just I'm just so sick of it. It's I mean it's great for me because that way I can go out there and basically develop projects that are meant for boys and go and attack that market and corner it. But at the same time, I think it's sad that boys get basically just kind of the second shift here. They just get kind of booted, because it's like Michael Jordan. Republicans buy sneakers too. So boys buy sneakers too. They have an allowance. They have money to spend. But you're right. They want. It's almost like this weird comeuppance. The 80s and the 90s were all about the men. So now we've got to do all this stuff with women in order to make it balanced or something, or fair. I love that. The left and the woke crowd. Everything's got to be fair. Or there's got to be equality.
Well, it's beyond equality now. It's like pretty much supremacy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what it leads to. When you kind of focus on a niche like that. And it's like I always ask people, equality, is that like a principle that you can point to in nature? Where do you find equality? I don't even think it exists. And I think it's ridiculous to think that you can expect it.
Yeah, agreed.
So, obviously you want to try and strive for that, but at the same time, it's like, I don't even know what that means. That's such an expansive word. Equal for who? For everybody? Because right now, boys aren't equal. Boys are basically left behind. So,
not to get too religious, but I would argue it is a mystery of faith.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you got a point too, John.
Yeah. There you go.
But anyway, yeah, we're chugging past midnight. This is one of our longer streams.
Yeah, I got to go and get somebody some treats. So,
all right, well, thank you for joining us. I think we're going to wrap it up. I guess we'll just do we'll start with you, Brett, so you can get to your dog.
Yeah, she's been very patient.
Yeah. Yeah, she has.
Yeah, I just appreciate if everybody could go out and pre-order Blood. You will not be disappointed. I think the link is in the comments section. You can also search on Amazon Blood graphic novel or Blood Chuck Dixon, and you'll find it. 98 pages, full color, beautiful. It's trade paperback, square bound, and printed in America with API Print Productions out of Georgia, which is the same printer that Doug TenNapel and Tim Lim use, and Doug Ernst also used them on Soul Finder. They printed a beautiful book, so I'm really excited to see it. And then I'm also
on Agent Posto too. Sorry.
Yeah. Our printer went out of business. We were going to use Cadmus, which they've been printing in Richmond, Virginia for almost 100 years, and we were really excited because we did not want to use China. We wanted to put America first and put Americans to work and print in America. So Cadmus goes out of business because of COVID. They dumped 180 people on the street. It's just tragic. So I was panicking for between 2 and 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait, it was like API. Tim uses them all the time, and Doug, Doug T and Doug E. They both use API. So I reached out to them, and they're great guys, great people. I encourage. Anybody in indie comics, if you want to print in America, check out API, because they were able to meet and beat the quote that I had with Cadmus. Mm-hmm. So, and obviously I know what kind of quality I'm getting, but yeah, we're wrapping up. Agent Posto art is done. I'm just waiting on lettering. Sergio's working on that. I'm going to have a proof probably on Friday, and then we're going to go to print next week, and then that'll fulfill probably the end of August, maybe like the first week of September, just kind of depending on how fast API can crank that out. So
I thought that book was great, from what we saw of it when we talked to Jack, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. That's Agent Posto's, probably the most gorgeous book I've ever worked on and had a hand in producing. The level of talent on it is just kind of astronomical, but it's a fun story, and we definitely want to do another one. So that's kind of the plan. So that, and then I'm going to be starting in on once that's to the printer, I'm going to be starting in on the sequel to Soul Finder. So Matt Weldon's on that. I've seen a lot of the art. It's really, really gorgeous. Yeah, tremendously talented guy. And Doug's turned out to, Doug is obviously also a accomplished writer for the Washington Examiner, and now he's proven he's got the mettle to be a comic book writer. He's great writer, great guy. I'm
looking forward to that one. I like the first one.
Yeah, I did too. I had a great message, beautiful art. It's a great production quality, and Doug knocks it out of the park, man. That's his first foray into comics. I think it was I expected it to be great, but I was really pleased with how it turned out and the reception. So really grateful for that. So, but you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Brett R. Smith 76, and got some other things. Working on something with Nick Searcy. Hopefully that will pan out, and I'll be able to come on here and make a big announcement.
Well, yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely stay in touch, Brett. And,
definitely.
Come on back because we could talk to you for hours. Obviously, man, it's just like four buddies chatting. It's always a great atmosphere when you have that. So, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. I'll definitely be back. So this is a lot of fun. So anyway, I'm going to take off. You guys have a great night.
Pleasure meeting you, my friend.
Oh, you too. You too, brother.
How you doing, man?
All right. Talk to you guys soon.
Yep, will do. All right, Drew.
All right. Well, obviously, I am Drew Taylor. I am a writer here at Bounding Into Comics. You can read my stuff, my latest story that come out yesterday or day before.
I think it was yesterday.
Yeah, about Dr. Disrespect.
Yeah, yesterday.
Check that out on our website, as well as the latest stuff that we have on our site. And then you can also follow me on Twitter at Supreme Heretic. And I will be streaming on Sunday, and we'll do a Bounding live stream on the Twitch channel. And
what time are you planning on starting?
I don't know. Spencer and I will figure it out. What time do you want to start, Spencer?
I have no idea. I have no idea off the top of my head. I have to look at some stuff.
Okay, but we will probably do it a little bit later in the evening. It may be it'll be somewhere between 8 and 11 Eastern that we'll start, and we'll go for probably an hour and a half, couple hours. But we will be playing Dead by Daylight again, and it'll be fun. You guys come in and harass us in the chat, and feel free to critique our gameplay. It's going to be a good time. But yeah, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Supreme Heretic, and check out my stuff on Bounding Into Comics. And tomorrow on my YouTube channel at Supreme Heretic on YouTube as well, we have the Pegasus Actual podcast that deals with all things Battlestar Galactica. If you enjoy BSG, we are reviewing the Ronald D. Moore BSG. To be clear, it's not the original. It's the 2004 series. And we are in season 2 currently. We are doing episode 16, which is called Sacrifice. That will be promptly tomorrow around 9 p.m. So make sure that you guys come out for that. It'll be a good discussion and a good time. And you can join me, Script Doctor, author Stephen Walton's out of town, but we'll have Jane Theory and Nerd Cookies and Culture Casino and a cast of thousands. So, you guys will enjoy the discussion. So stop on by, and we'll see you then.
Sweet. All right, Spencer.
Yeah, I have been Spencer Bakuli. You can find me daily.
You have been? You still on him?
I have been. Who knows if I'll be him in a little bit. You can find me daily on Bounding Into Comics, and you can find me on Twitter at Kabuto Rider Mav. And finally, you can find me back here on Friday with John as we continue our anime rewind of Mobile Fighter G Gundam. And it's getting better, I would say. I think the episodes are getting better.
Yes.
So, yeah, join us. It's fun,
yes.
And
we're getting into the thick of the story.
Yeah, we're actually getting into the story. We're done with introducing all the characters.
Yes. I think you're gonna have a Lower Decks review as well.
Oh yes, of course. How could I forget?
Oh gosh,
a weekly Lower Decks review as I continue taking this awful journey.
We appreciate you making that sacrifice.
It's a public service me and our friend Script Doctor are taking. So check out his reviews, check out my reviews, and see you back here on Friday. Yes,
I'm looking forward to our anime rewind on Friday. I was actually thinking, I don't know. I'll have to talk with you offline about this, Spencer.
Yeah.
We might mix it up a little bit. Maybe do some pinch hitting. Maybe put in another series on there as well, and then maybe like rotate every other week or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
We'll see. But we're going to be doing G Gundam this week for sure. And then we also have our Trek Tuesdays, which we do every Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. So look forward to that. And then I actually have, I just recorded the video right before we came online, so I didn't have time to edit it yet. I don't plan on editing it tonight, so I'll have that. I'll have a video up on 300 tomorrow. The 300 movie, Zack Snyder's 300 movie, has come under attack from our favorite publication, CBR.
Oh, come on.
I think this is probably one of my best videos. There'll be an article as well on it. I think hopefully I won't get demonetized because I'll be using old clips, or my plan is to use old clips from 300. So hopefully that won't get, and they're shorts, so hopefully we won't get demonetized there. Who knows? These people are crazy with the demonetization now, but I look forward to this video because I think it'll be a good one. I was very happy with my script and my delivery on the when I was recording it. So
and
I take their writer to task pretty well.
Yeah, and I will have that. I will have that Halo. I'll have a video all about the Halo delay, what I think is going to happen with the game, and everything else. So we'll have that tomorrow for you guys. I'll make sure that I forward that on over to John, and he will get it uploaded. So we'll have that on the channel as well, and then I'll have a companion article to go with it that you guys can check out. So we've got a busy day tomorrow here at Bounding, but it'll be fun, and you guys will have a ton of new content to check out in the morning.
And we will be back next Wednesday for Bounding Live. I don't know if we have a special guest lined up. I think Jorge was working on someone, so I'll have to talk to him to see if that person is confirmed. Otherwise, I will be looking for someone as well. So I think we're enjoying having these special guests come on and join us for Bounding Live. So I know I am. Yep. So we'll have another special guest next week, unless I am in the delivery room. So
yeah.
And then I'm gonna have to figure out. That's one thing I'm gonna have to figure out is
what are we gonna do with that?
Yeah, what do we do when I'm in the delivery room? So I'll put together a plan. That's kind of just with us. But you guys are now privy to it as well. So thank you all, and hope you have a great night. And we will see you. Spencer and I will see you on Friday.
Yes, see you then.